Genty bounces outside, has a seam. Ashton Genty, he's 10, he's touchdown, Boise State.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
One-on-one down the sidelines. Caught! Flag! Touchdown! Brown doing it for the Cats!
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here is Scatterboo. On top balance. Stays on his feet. Rolls into the end zone.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
And it's going to be a double pass. Aller loads, fires deep. Man, there is Warren. Got it. Touchdown, Penn State.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Tyron Lacey, the motion man. Pump fake, Nussmeier goes back shoulder. Touchdown! Tyron Lacey! And LSU wins!
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go on this Thursday afternoon, 365 Sports, as we are in studio on MLK and Elm, a little bit down west of McLean Stadium and I-35. Good afternoon. We have a lot to get to. David Ubben will join us early, a national columnist with college football, but much more. Former Baylor quarterback Seth Russell at 4 o'clock today. Craig's off the radar. UT radio color analyst Roger Wallace, as they have Georgia this week. Mickey Spagnola, Craig's off the radar, I said, and also Paul's top 5 in our pod this week. Today is the Big 12 South. All right, so it's kind of a light day, pretty quiet day when it comes to a lot of stories as far as like breaking news. None of that. Very quiet. Not even a lot of injury notes that you normally get by about this time of the week. Heisman Trophy update. Garrett sent this one in from Circus Sports. Ashton Genty, led by Craig Smoak as his president of the Ashton Genty fan club, is favored right now. Dylan Gabriel, after the win against Ohio State, that surely didn't hurt. Cam Ward, they're rolling along at Miami. Travis Hunter, and then Jalen Milroe, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, back-to-back-to-back quarterbacks in the SEC.
Yeah, not surprised that that's where it is right now. Carson Beck hasn't done anything for me that suggests he should be a Heisman candidate at this point. But the top three, that's who I would send to New York if I were doing it right now. And Ashton Genty would be my winner. No offense to Travis Hunter, who did say on RG3's podcast the other day, like, what if I had – he's got 95 carries and 1,000 yards. What if I had 95 catches? And, even Robert was like, well, that's, not really, possible, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And also, if over the season, all he has to do is look at LeJontay Wester, who had 115 catches last year for FAU, who's on his own team now, and say how many yards you have, and he had 114 catches for about 1,300 yards. That's about the same. Running backs and wide receivers, it just takes running backs more carries to get those yards because they hand them the ball 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage and all.
I think the only way, Craig, that Carson Beck even gets into any of the conversation, Georgia would have to win the game in Austin this weekend.
Yeah, that would have to happen, and then I think they'd have to win out the rest of the way. I don't understand otherwise why he would be a candidate. Nothing that he's doing statistically is all that impressive, and his 2 highest passing yardage games where he cracks the 400-yard mark and he's got 3 touchdowns. He's also got a total of 5 interceptions against Mississippi State and Alabama. So, that's a entry that I guess makes sense because he was on there at the beginning of the year and makes sense because there's not really anybody else from Georgia to put up in that spot. So maybe you feel the need to have them have a guy there, I guess. Otherwise, I don't really understand it. I think sometimes, too, on these lists, we start a lot of times in college football, you have to determine which people are actually looking at college football and which people are projecting out to the NFL.
Absolutely, yep.
There's a lot of NFL fans who cover college football and cover it from an NFL perspective, and that's where I could see maybe some of that love for him coming into play. Beyond that, he's not in my top 5 Heisman list right now, and I don't think he'll be in it when it's all said and done, but we'll see. Ashton Genty's my number 1 guy as well, although I see the folks already trying to pick apart his level of competition, and that's understandable. You knew that would come with the territory, but I still think he's got a great case to be in New York and to possibly be the winner if he keeps doing what he's been doing up to this point. Gabriel, Ward, all those quarterbacks bunched up. I get that. I, however, am a little bit not only am I down on Carson Beck being like a borderline top 5 finalist because of what again? Because of what has he done? But Quinn Ewers, I don't even know if he'll be the starting quarterback in the next few weeks based on what we've seen. Like, did y'all watch Red River? He wasn't that great.
Yep.
He wasn't that great. And, still not even looking all of 100% healthy. So I'll be very curious to see where he continues to sit as far as Texas and their season goes. Because
he did throw three interceptions and 250 against Michigan on the road, which I know that Michigan has tailed off after where they were ranked early in the year.
Yeah, so I don't really believe in Quinn Ewers' Heisman hopes at this point, although with their schedule, go out and have a big game against Georgia, and you could – skyrocket up there. Same thing for the Georgia side of things, obviously, as I kind of picked that apart as well. But, yeah, I think Genty's the main guy. I think the Big 12's got a really great, candidate there in Travis Hunter. And we'll see if anybody else jumps up there into that mix. But he's basically the guy because you see Shador's the number 2 guy out of this league. And, Ollie Gordon's not
even listed,
forget about it.
Yeah.
That burst before it even got really bubbling. But, yeah, it's an interesting list to look at. It's been a fun year so far. We'll see who kind of takes it over. And I'm glad to know that Travis Hunter's not going to be bit, hopefully, too much by the injury bug. He's coming back this week, so hopefully he can get back to it.
He plays, I think, on average about 130 snaps a game, and obviously went out in the loss to Kansas State, so that number, I'm sure, by now has gone down. Deion, of course, he wasn't really a two-way player. He played wide receiver. He was a great returner. If you really needed one to be run back, you stuck him back there like the Redskins did back in the day with Darryl Green. Two-way players in the NFL.
In the history of the NFL?
I mean, like literally could play. I'm not saying five snaps at wide receiver.
Because that's what Deion was 5 snaps at wide receiver.
Caught a long pass against Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl, but it's probably the most famous catch. Not famous, but it's a catch he made in that. But as far as somebody that really went both ways, I'm sure there's somebody back in the days of using the leather helmets or whatever. But Travis Hunter, he's not injury prone, but he's had some bad luck. Now, he got drilled against Colorado State on that cheap shot that separated his ribs or whatever happened there, and then the shoulder injury. And another reason why you want to be careful about how many snaps you're out on either side of the ball, because every time you take another snap, then you're also vulnerable for a hit. I don't think he's injury prone. He's just had a couple of bad things happen.
Yeah, I don't think he's injury prone. He's tough. Like he's unique. I mean, he's I would compare him to Ohtani. Like we've got, Shohei Ohtani right now. We've got Travis Hunter right now. Those are, that's Babe Ruth and Jim Thorpe at the same time. About every 100 years we're going to get athletes like that, right? They are maybe 100-year athletes. And we're getting to experience them now. So, yeah, trying to find another two-way player, that's not like I think of, and now he's pretty much a full-time fullback, but Patrick Ricard is the closest thing in the NFL right now, and he's, occasionally he'll play on the goal line as a D tackle, but pretty much now he's a fullback.
Yeah, I'm talking about playing on offense and defense.
He did
it
for a little bit,
not the special teams, because Tim Brown and
a
few others that were also wide receivers, or defensive backs like Deion, who when they needed him, Darryl Green, they would put him back there, and a lot of times they would take it back. Pretty crazy, probably percentage of how many punt returns, and they would take it all the way back. All right, so Arizona. We posted this earlier today.
Let's go get us another buffalo.
The title of that tweet was "We're listening." You're asking, and we're listening. What would any of you do, middle of the night, 1:30 at night, if you're dead asleep, and not forget about the uniforms, which I love that color. In fact, I wore this today in honor of Arizona, pretty close to their color. What would you do if that music just started blaring in your house at 1:30 in the morning, dead asleep? I would all over myself.
I live by the fairgrounds, as you know. I'm like, if you just counted the streets, I'm like 7 streets away. Now there's a lot of houses in between there, but a few nights ago there was a Tejano concert that had started, and then it stopped for a little bit. I guess the opening act came on, and then I fell asleep, and then the closing act came on, and it scared the crap out of me, and it wasn't even, and I was still pretty far away. So if it was like that, I'd have to get a new mattress.
Yeah, Craig? You're up at 1:30 though. You're a late night.
Yeah, I think anything. I think there's if I heard this specific, I think anything that's blaring out that late at night is probably going to catch you off guard a little bit. But I mean, the big thing here is the all red's nice, and I'm sure there's been plenty of people clamoring for that. But it's the helmets, which I don't know how much you even saw of that. It's the helmets with their specific cactus logo. That is what makes that unique, and that's part of what's a little bit different and new about these particular unveilings. So that's something that Arizona fans can look forward to. I like it when people shake things up and do something a little bit different. So they're doing something a little bit different for Colorado, and I think they look pretty cool. So we'll see how they look out on the field, and everything looks better when you're winning. They haven't been doing that lately, and they really need to get on track, but Colorado's going to be a tough test for them, and I think you can go look at the Arizona football account. Obviously, you can look at any tweets where these are more detailed, but they put the logo that's on the helmet up as their primary avatar. So that cactus logo is right there, and that's what's going to be on their helmets. So, yeah, cool to shake things up a little bit.
All right. Also, Illinois unveiled theirs. Illinois will wear these throwback uniforms against Michigan on Saturday. Illinois had a nice run. Almost blew the game last weekend, but they have had a nice run. 1920s themed, commemorating the 100th anniversary of the Great Red Grange. Scored 6 touchdowns in a game against Michigan. I think he also had 400 yards rushing in that game. The NCAA record, in case you're curious, Samaje Perine had 427 yards in 2014 against Kansas. And had just been broken the week before by Melvin Gordon. As the only two. He had 400 yards in a game. Prior to that was LaDainian Tomlinson when he was at TCU. So those are the throwback uniforms for the Illini.
I love them. Absolutely love them.
Isn't it weird how they can have the helmet we have today with all the technology and all the way they can be safe, and yet it looks like it's an old leather helmet, the way that they can do that now with the artwork and graphics, etc. today. Texas and Georgia coming up on Saturday night. What a game it should be. Georgia has looked okay. When Craig wants to say average, he just says they're fine. They're in the top 5. I get it. And then again, maybe they haven't earned that. They lost to Alabama. They played Texas, and is this a must-win for them to be in the playoff, or they're still going to have, no, that's fine. They lost to Alabama, Texas. They can still run the table. I think it is. I think they have. I think they get 2 mulligans.
Look, 10-2 in the SEC is probably going to get you in, and that's maybe even true for Ole Miss right now. But
they better not lose again.
But I do think that 9-3 puts you on the cusp. Like 9-3 might get you in if the other 2 leagues who are beneath the Power 2 don't have enough people to fill in, extra spots. But I think 10-2 in the SEC gets you in.
I think if your 2 losses are the top 5 teams, then that's different than having 2 losses overall. So, yeah, I would think that if they lose to Texas and it's respectable, that they're still going to be fine. I don't think you can have 3 losses, though. I don't care who you are. Say that, and, of course, if somebody were to get the benefit of that doubt, it'd be like one of the 3 schools in the same league that come to mind. It'd be an Alabama, Texas, or Georgia that would be able to get in at a 3-loss. But even still, I think those teams are stretching that. So you've got room for one more. It's a top 5 team. It's on the road. You don't get blown out, then you're probably still okay. You'll probably drop, I don't know, based on AP voters, to 7 or something. So you should still be fine. But, you don't have a lot of mulligans to play around with. That's the downside to the playoff for a lot of people is Georgia would already be in limbo and maybe eliminated this weekend, and people want to see that as opposed to them losing this weekend and still making the playoff. But I don't know. That's the trade-off. You either get a couple Big 12 teams or a couple ACC teams or that 4th SEC team that's maybe riding a hot hand. You finally give them a chance at the end of the year to, go do what they can do. The trade-off is that the big brands at the top get more leeway to just further entrench themselves in those playoffs. So, you have to give to take, and that's the give and the take. So, yeah, we'll see. But 2 losses would put them on that line for sure.
Yeah, no question. And especially because the Alabama game was classic. They came all the way back. They were down at 1 point, 28-0, took the lead. Then they give up the long throw from Milroe to Williams. So they end up losing by 7. If they lose if Texas just kind of jumps on them, and Georgia doesn't take care of themselves as far as the football, and they could have a loss in this game that if it's one-sided, I don't know if that will happen or not, but if it is, that could maybe take away that second mulligan. Scotty Scheffler, the great golfer, number 1 player in the world, had an unbelievable year, even won the gold medal, won the Tour Championship. He will be the guest picker. That was released today by the Pat McAfee Show. A guest picker for College Game Day in Austin for the game that we just talked about between Texas and Georgia. One of the responses in that note was, you got to get a guy who's been arrested for driving because Georgia's going to be there.
It's fitting, yeah.
Yeah, that's very fitting. It reminds me of the SEC shorts crack this week. I don't know if you saw that, where they were having the light bulb golf when they lied. And Georgia came in because I got here in an illegally amount of time. Nope. Yeah. But yeah, I love it. Scotty Scheffler. He's the best golfer in the world right now. I know he's a big college football fan. He's a Texas fan, and should be an interesting one. I hope Corso's okay. He's missed the last couple weeks. Starting to get a little worried again.
I mean, I got worried 2 years ago. Yeah. I mean, I think most people did, but they just kept trotting him out there. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Hopefully he's all right. But, my God, I mean, it's been painful to watch a lot of times here in recent memory. But as far as the good of game day, I think that's an excellent pick. I mean, the best golfer in the world, a UT guy who's not a retread like a Matthew McConaughey, which would have been fine. People would have understood it, but we've seen that so many times now. It's kind of, lost maybe some of its luster. So to shake it up and have one of the best athletes on the planet, and certainly a guy who's a Hall of Fame caliber type of player already in his career, I think that is a great choice for Texas and makes a lot of sense, and I think that'll be a nice addition to game day.
By the way, I am glad it's not Matthew McConaughey. He's a stud. We understand he's an icon, but that's always an easy one to get to. But I thought this was...
They had Glenn Powell last year from Top Gun. that you would know him, Top Gun Maverick. And he's a Texas guy. There's a lot of celebrities attached to the University of Texas that you don't have to just keep going back to that well.
Well, that's what I've brought up before.
Yeah.
I understand his popularity, and he loves the attention too. And a lot of people do that do those type of appearances. He's on the sideline quite a bit, but and he seems to be such a great dude. Somebody in the chat room mentioned that they feel like A&M is going to be 4-0 in the SEC. They have Mississippi State next. Do you know the overall record between A&M and Mississippi State in the 16 times they've met?
It's not great for A&M. I can tell you that.
8-8.
Oh, well, it's not great for either.
8-8. Now, they played, back in 1912, 13, 15. So, but since they entered the SEC, it has been dicey.
This is the battle for the Jackie Sherrill Trophy.
No, that's absolutely right.
He coached at both places.
Paul and I were in Austin. This has been way back, and I can't remember exactly when, but we were covering Baylor in Austin against Texas, and we're walking around some of the tailgating, and we went inside and a couple of places and enjoyed ourselves with some food. And we happened to catch on the big projection screen is the year that Dak Prescott and Mississippi State, I think, were ranked number 1 in the country.
Yeah, they beat Alabama that year. Yeah.
And they hammered A&M. That's one that I can remember just off the top of my head. That would have been back in the day, though.
Yeah, that was. I think A&M should handle this one. The big one is next week at Kyle Field, where they play LSU. That's a huge one for both of them. A&M can withstand this loss conference-wise because their loss is to Notre Dame, who's not in any conference, and it's still kind of
being playoff-wise, though.
Yeah, but playoff-wise is not good. But
see, they can't. They lost to Notre Dame, but they can't lose to someone else other than maybe at the end of the year if they continue to win, and then lose perhaps to Texas.
If they lose to LSU, then they have to beat Texas, right? If they beat LSU, then they could probably lose to Texas.
That wouldn't be. That's some blue bloods, though. Losing to Notre Dame, losing to LSU, and if you do, in Texas.
If they're 9-3 and their 3 losses are Notre Dame, LSU, and Texas, all teams that are playoff teams, that's a great start for Mike Elko. But I don't think that's not what he wants.
I think that's a great start. Certainly, they're off to a great start right now, and to get a win this weekend and just position themselves as far as the postseason goes. I think you've got a real winnable game, although it's in Starkville, so there's that element to it. But, there's nothing we've seen from Mississippi State this time around that would lead you to believe that this 1-5 team's going to jump up and bite you. But you got to be prepared for anything. I think you feel good, though, about your chances. And, the bigger games are on the other side of it, but you can't start looking at those yet. You got to just handle your business and what's in front of you, and I think Mike Elko's the type of guy to do that. So I like the fact that we haven't talked about him that much, really, that they've just kind of been handling their business, and, that's about it. Not a lot of drama, no guys racing through parking garages like morons, no extracurricular BS going on like it seemed constantly there at the end with Jimbo and some of his guys. It's just been kind of quiet in a good way of just going out playing football, winning games, and going on to the next one. And that's been refreshing, whereas A&M, when they've been successful, have typically also had a type of spotlight attached to it with Johnny Manziel, obviously creating a lot of that, and then that just sort of carrying over. And, with Jimbo, just a lot of kind of nonsense going on. So, yeah, I like their spot. I like them to win this weekend, and then after that, all bets are off. But they have every reason to talk, big implications right now because they're in the thick of things.
They beat the hell out of Missouri. And
that shouldn't have been surprising because Missouri was a paper tiger anyways, and everybody knew that was watching those rankings. I saw somebody ask, trying to downplay the SEC, mystique of the polls getting, put in certain ways in their favor, which I think is obvious because somebody drops and then somebody else jumps up dramatically. Somebody drops out, another team jumps in. Somehow you have a bunch of teams lose and you gain a team in the ring, like that kind of a thing. But that's an example where I think you do see that.
Paul, what have I called that? The AP Top 25?
The SEC bubble?
The SEC bubble. Now, there's a lot of teams that have earned it. A&M has earned where they're moving up. Huh?
The cushion.
Yeah. But they beat the living hell out of Missouri, and now they have Mississippi State on the road in Starkville. And then, as you mentioned, Craig, a heck of a game in a couple of weeks with a hot team in LSU after that overtime win against Ole Miss. All right, So those are some of the stories from today. David Ubben from theathletic.com will join us in a minute. Thank you to retired stockbroker who contacted Don Humidor and Coffee Beans, ordered some Texas cigar sampler packs along with some copies and more. Appreciate you. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans will have on their website soon a chance for you to order online if, in fact, you want to do that. When we come back, David Ubben also today, look forward because he is not afraid. He will not pull any punches, Seth Russell, former Baylor quarterback, on what he has seen so far. Will Baylor pull it out this weekend? The bye week help, or are they still the same team? Rinse and repeat over and over and over again. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, my dentist, who has done a remarkable job in helping me, one, understand the do's and the don'ts, the sweets from the lozenges that I used to just constantly have in my mouth. And I always did that. Not like I didn't like the color, but I did that a lot because I thought it always would help soothe my throat, especially when the weather started getting cool like it is today or this week and during football season. And then I would chew on them even more than I needed to. But when I went to him during COVID in 2020, he said, my goodness, we got some work to do here. He told me right off the top, you're losing those 2 teeth. Root canal. First day I saw him. Hey, how you doing? Root canal. I was like, I'm not coming back. Yes, you are, because you have to, because you put yourself in this position. In Stonewood Dental with Robinson, Texas, with not only just Dr. Steve Childress, but other dentists as well. If you have stayed away or you have bad habits when it comes to dental hygiene, that's your fault, but they can help you out, give you a game plan like they gave me one too. Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress in Robinson, Texas.
Get ready for Jeep Adventure Days at Allen Samuels in Waco. Right now, drive away in a brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xe or a Wrangler 4xe with an unbeatable 0% financing for 72 months. Looking for a Wagoneer? We've got you covered with 3.9% for 72 months on all Wagoneers. First responders get an extra $500 off. Hurry in. Don't miss these incredible offers only at Allen Samuels in Waco. Your friend in the car business.
Come by. Let's be friends.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Petty Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
365 Sports. Hope you're having a great day. We'll take you up until 6 o'clock here on 365 Sports, and a lot of great guests, including, again, Seth Russell, former Baylor quarterback, here in just a little bit. From theathletic.com, David Ubben, national columnist, covers college football and more, joins us with Craig and Paul. David Smoak on three.
I said I'll give you a thumbs up when he jumps on.
Oh, I thought you said he was on. I'm sorry. That's why I didn't hear you. Waiting to hear, didn't get David Ubben on the show. Paul, do we have the college football predictions link available to the
Yeah, I'll put it up right now.
As they even call themselves on the chat room, the degenerates in the chat room. So get that up, and we got it. David Ubben, theathletic.com, with us on 365 Sports with Craig and Paul. David Smoak. David, thanks for your time. So how would you describe the last couple of weekends or this entire up until now college football season? Thanks for your time, by the way.
I think it's been interesting in that, the last few years you get to the halfway point and you're like, well, I don't know if anybody could beat X. This year there's not a team like that. I mean, I guess Texas is technically the best team, but they don't look invincible and they might lose this weekend. So, in the 12-team playoff era, in the NIL era, it's been really, really fun to watch this year.
David, did your playoff expectations change after last week?
Maybe a little bit. Maybe Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss being kind of on the outside and LSU maybe playing their way in. Other than that, not a ton. I think it's probably best for everybody to move on from the Utah conversation. We can sort of rule out Utah. And we don't have to say, well, if Cam Rising this, if Cam Rising that. There is no more if Cam Rising. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for me. And it's crazy to look at the top of the SEC standings for all the offseason conversation, and you got A&M at the very top, and then Texas and LSU right behind them. So it's been unpredictable.
David, you mentioned Utah. I mean, the preseason favorite in the league. They're clearly out of that mix now. But BYU, a surprise, undefeated at this point. Iowa State undefeated at this point. You still got K-State and Tech just with the one loss. We knew the Big 12 would kind of be a minefield, teams beating up on each other, but what do you think the way the tops kind of emerged, and who do you believe in amongst those top teams?
I believe in BYU. BYU is a team I think I believe in. Behind them, it's interesting. I think you have to keep an eye on Texas Tech. We'll see what Arizona State is, but from top to bottom, man, I love the toughness of BYU. One of probably the best home field advantages, especially at night. So the Big 12's wide open, but I think – I've always said Kalani Sitake near or at the top of the list of coaches I would not want to encounter in a dark alley, and his team's kind of the same way too.
Isn't it crazy? Well, not crazy. Isn't it interesting about this Big 12? Other conferences, you have your dudes at the top that usually are there year in and year out. But the Big 12, Oklahoma was constantly a part of that mix and won a bunch of titles. But then one year it's Oklahoma State, one year it's TCU, one year it's Baylor. And it's doing that again now, whether Oklahoma and Texas are gone, David, that you just don't know who's going to be in the mix, even when you think you do.
Yeah, it is interesting. I felt like the Big 12 was as wide open as anything coming into this year. You looked at the preseason poll, and you're like, I can talk myself into any of these 8 teams. Well, and here comes BYU, 13th preseason, and here comes Arizona State last in the league preseason. So you really didn't know. And I think this is going to be a league that pretty consistently does that because the gap in talent from the top of the league to the bottom was so narrow. And with Texas and OU recruiting the way that they did for a long time, after A&M and Nebraska left the league, you kind of knew, like, if they're not in the mix, something's gone horribly wrong, but they're always going to kind of be there. But now, you start the season at the top, in the preseason. That doesn't mean a whole lot. If you start the season 10th, that also didn't mean a whole lot. And we're seeing that this year. I don't know about you guys, but I think it's going to be this way moving forward in the Big 12.
UCF was 3-0. They had just beaten TCU, had this great win, and then they've dropped 3 in a row. Obviously, it's not put Gus Malzahn in trouble, but how did the wheels fall off so fast for them?
The running game just hadn't been effective, and KJ Jefferson's been throwing the ball kind of all over the yard. Making a QB change was shocking to me. Especially when you go into the portal and you go get KJ Jefferson. So that was surprising. But, the big thing is the defense was never great. But when you don't have a great defense and your offense starts faltering, it can get bad in a hurry. And that's kind of where UCF is living right now. Not a zip code I'm looking to move into if I'm any team.
David, do you see much of a future left for Dave Aranda at Baylor? Do you think he can somehow salvage this? I mean, it's impossible for us to see how they go on some 6-0 type of run in the second half of the season. The bowl game's looking, I mean, they got to go 4-2. They're not favored this weekend, so you're looking at 5-1 potentially. Just any thoughts on Aranda and Baylor and a gig he's had now for a handful of years?
Is no too simple an answer?
No, I'd like some more than that, but yeah, that answers it.
I think ultimately when you're at Baylor, when you look at his teams, when they get less and less talented every year, it's not always the case, but you're generally going to lose more and more games every year if you're not building your talent up, whether that be through recruiting, whether that be through the portal. And this roster has gotten less and less talented year by year, and that's a problem. I always tell people in college football is a talent acquisition business, and if you're not acquiring the best talent that you possibly can, you're going to have a problem. And we've seen at Baylor, under Matt Rule, obviously under our brows, you can recruit to Baylor. There's a lot to recruit to there. And so for them to be recruiting and have the roster sort of backslide the way that it has, there's not a lot of excuses for that.
No, and you hear a little bit of, they have this great class in 2025. Whoever comes in, whoever it might be, will be able to build their own class. Although it's you have that December signing period and then the transfer portal. But you can't hold yourself hostage because of that, can you?
No, you've seen enough at this point, and especially in the portal era, a recruiting class doesn't mean that much to you. They get here, if they're not winning, I mean, you're going to get mined. You're going to get guys pulled away. You're not going to be able to keep those guys if they're not winning. And I just in this new era of college football, in the portal era, especially when you have established that, hey, we're not getting it done here. This program is getting worse under you. The one recruiting class is not going to save you. Ask Billy Napier about that.
Do you buy that Sonny Dykes might be under the gun at TCU yet?
The grumbling is fair. I think that you still got at least one more year to kind of reverse these trend lines. That's another place. Recruiting has not been great. The quarterback situation, they seem to be striking out, post Max Duggan, Chandler Morris, they couldn't get it done there. Josh Hoover's been better, but defensively they're kind of a disaster. And, it's always going to be tough in the Big 12. And if you have some injuries, things happen. But, losing to Houston, I think was kind of a through the looking glass moment where that loss to Houston felt like, okay, all the goodwill that you built up in 22, it's kind of gone now. Now you gotta do something, and I don't think you can rule it out. But it's a similar thing. This has got to start with recruiting. You got to get great players in there, and you look at TCU. They got some receivers, but defensively, all the guys that have been making plays, Tomlinson, Hodges, all that stuff. We need to see more of those guys coming through the pipeline for TCU, and I don't necessarily see those guys right now.
David, what's been your takeaway on Colorado this year? I mean, they certainly seem to be much better than many projected and anticipated. They've got real deal talent beyond just the top two guys that everybody always names. The defense looks better, but what have been your impressions and your thoughts on a team that's kind of hard to wrap your arms around because you don't know how long it's actually going to be in existence, right? I mean, there's this year, and beyond that, there's a massive question mark. So it's kind of hard to get too all in on them, I feel like.
I'm still going to need to see more to believe that Deion's going to be here after this year. But this year's team, they really upgraded their defensive front, and they're seeing the payoff on that. They've got better talent than they've had defensively. They're able to stop the run. You look at that UCF win. Why did they win that game? Because they slowed the run game down. They did the same thing with K-State. They weren't able to get the win there, but they weren't going to get rolled over. Offensive line, it is what it is. At this point, Shedor's sort of used to running for his life, but they've been better than I thought. And the receivers that's an elite unit. So how far can a team with just receivers and a quarterback take you? I think we found that out last year. But when you mix in a pretty competent defense, a decent defensive front, that's you can get a little bit further. And they look like a team that's probably going to be able to get to a bowl.
You wrote an article about both Alabama and Tennessee, who had nice wins. Alabama beating Georgia. Tennessee, of course, with the win against Oklahoma. And they're both rolling, right? And all of a sudden, 2 weeks ago, both of them fall on their face. Vanderbilt gets Alabama, and then Tennessee, of course, falls as well. You talk to a bunch of coaches. What are they telling you about what they see from those two schools?
Question marks. I mean, it's crazy. I told you this is like the angstiest top 10 showdown I've ever seen because Both these teams only have one loss. They're both very much in the playoff hunt. They're both in the top 10. And yet, there's a lot of grumbling on both sides. And I think it's the last 2 weeks. Florida's not a great team. South Carolina's good, but they're not great. And Alabama was threatening to run away with that game until all of a sudden they found themselves kind of in a dogfight. So, the biggest thing for Alabama is, you can read some of this in the story, but the defensive differences between what Nick Saban did and what Kane Womack does now and the talent that they have there that's been an interesting dynamic. And then for both sides of the line of scrimmage, most of the coaches are pretty unimpressed with Alabama. As for Tennessee, teams are kind of learning how to deal with that veer and shoot that Baylor obviously popularized in the sport, and doing some pretty tricky things defensively to be able to slow down their running game. And also that, Nico is still a work in progress. This team on the whole is probably better than the 22 team, but Hendon Hooker was like a fourth-year starter. He played a couple of years at Virginia Tech. He had a ton of experience. Nico, he's been a household name in the sport for a while, for people who follow the sport, but he only played like 7 games. So I think people kind of forget that, and he's still learning. So it's going to be a really interesting game on Saturday night. I'll be in there in the house for that one, and it should be a fun atmosphere.
David Ubben, theathletic.com, with us on 365 Sports. Paul?
David, one of those teams that beat Tennessee was Arkansas, and Sam Pittman came into the year very much on the hot seat. I don't think he's completely taken himself off, but he certainly cooled it down after that Tennessee win, and they're 4-2 right now. They have Taylon Green, who's exciting.
Yeah.
Bringing Bobby Petrino back appears to have worked. Their defense is good. I mean, there's not much to dislike about the job he's done in this particular year.
Yeah, I mean, I thought big picture, the hot seat stuff with Pittman, I get it. I understand that it's a results business. But if you look at it from a 30,000-foot perspective, okay, they had a couple frustrating losses in 22. Whiffed on an OC hire last year that he corrected midseason. Dan Enos was a questionable hire from the start. Didn't look good. Hit the eject button on that one midseason. The Bobby Petrino hire obviously was a wild decision for a lot of off-the-field reasons. But on the field, it did make a lot of sense. And I said, as soon as it happened and leading into the season, I get that this is sort of insane, but it's going to be attractive to Bobby because he's coming in for a coach that's going to be pretty hands-off on the offense versus, dealing with a year of Jimbo where that was not the case. It's going to be attractive to him, and they got a lot of pieces to be able to kind of fix this thing. And so I thought it might work, and it has. And this Arkansas team, I think they got a great shot to win against LSU on Saturday, and they're not that many plays away from being 6-0. They should have beat Oklahoma State. They were in position to win that game. They raced out to a huge lead at the start, and they had a great shot to beat A&M. Just couldn't quite get it done there late. But they're a few plays away from being 6-0 and sitting there in the top 10.
Little did we know what foreshadowing that was with Oklahoma State as well. That wasn't just like, oh, hey, Arkansas is better. It's like, no, Oklahoma State's also not nearly what they appeared like they were in the preseason, which has been really surprising just kind of how off they are right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Ollie Gordon's had probably the weirdest season of maybe anybody in college football this year. I don't really get it. The offensive line hasn't been great, but it's been hard to watch him at times. He looks a little slower. The offensive line is the biggest reason, I think, at this point, but he hadn't looked great either.
I'm not sure where you sat on realignment. I can't recall just like kind of the recent couple of waves. Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, it did give us Ohio State, Oregon last week. It's given us Georgia, Texas this week. So I guess if there's a bonus, it would be those things. But clearly you're not a fan, but Georgia, Texas, your thoughts on that as well, this new SEC matchup that we have for ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing with realignment is I hate it. Mostly the death of the Pac-12. The SEC at least makes some sense. I hate it in general, but I'm also kind of a mark because I get as hyped as anybody for Ohio State, Oregon, for Georgia, Texas. I mean, Penn State, USC. I hate it, but also these games are awesome. So, I think I wrote a column last year right after the Pac-12 broke up where I was just like, this sucks, but also I'm going to really enjoy watching these games. So it is what it is, and casual fans and bringing in as many of those is kind of the name of the game. As for the game itself, I mean, this might be a big-time fireworks game because both of these teams can be got in the secondary, and that's the biggest vulnerability for both of these teams. And they got two quarterbacks who can really sling it. So I think you're going to see Quinn Ewers. You're going to see Carson Beck stretch the field in this game. It's going to be a lot of fun.
David, Army-Navy, both in the top 25. We had Bryson Daly on our show yesterday. How much fun. Yeah, we had him on yesterday. He won the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award also this week. How much fun is it to see just their names inside the top 25? Not one, but both of them.
It's pretty incredible. And I will say the CFP approach and the conference situation kind of ruins it for me a little bit because it's a great story. But these two teams meeting in the AAC championship, which might still happen, we'll see. There's a lot of football left to play. For a game that decides the playoff and then meeting a week later in the Army-Navy game for a game that doesn't decide anything except, I guess, bragging rights, from a week earlier. This is where realignment gets us. This is what we have wrought in this sort of weird world. And everybody kind of agreed when they brought the 12-team playoff. Well, Army-Navy won't be relevant, so we can just totally leave it out of any of the discussion of the playoff. And then we're here in year one, and it might be quite relevant. So we'll see. It's awesome to see them succeed, but when you look at where can this go? The best possible place for it to go is the worst possible scenario for the playoff. That would really, if let's say one of these teams wins the first game and the second one wins the second game, it kind of ruins it a little bit for me.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, David, what do we get when we assume?
Mm-hmm. That's what people tell me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what happened to the rule makers. We're still a couple weeks away from where we hear the committee, give the reasons for different things. How different do you think their explanations will sound 12 teams as opposed to 4 teams?
It's going to get hilarious because we're going to have – they just have to be consistent. With the 4 team, we had kind of moving targets that frustrated people. But you're really only talking about, there was never a 2-loss team that made the 12 team. So you're kind of looking at, one loss, what's on their resume, all these different things. When you start talking about 9-3 teams and trying to sort through the wreckage of a very complicated season, good luck to them. 2014 and last year was really only 2 years. There was a lot of controversy at the end where people were really mad. I felt like they had a pretty good case. It's going to be every year this year. The job of being on the committee just got a lot harder, and I do not envy anybody that does that. I don't know why people choose to do.
Coach Cignetti at Indiana's done a great story. I saw part of what was said about Carl, Troy Aikman.
Yeah.
And they're unbeaten, and they're really good. They're scoring points. Their defense and offensive efficiency numbers are as good as anybody in the country. What a good story that is. Indiana, Matt Rule, Nebraska, 5-1, but they have Indiana on the road and then at Ohio State. So all of a sudden, people start having heartburn about whether they get the 6 wins or not, no matter who's down the road. Indiana, your thoughts about what they might do to try to spoil the Big Ten?
I'm excited for this week because we're going to kind of learn how good this team is in levels, right? Right now, they're sitting there at 6-0. They beat the heck out of teams. They haven't played a lot of great teams. They played some okay teams. Nobody great. Nebraska's a good team, probably a bowl team. If you smack Nebraska in a spot here where you're kind of feeling a little bit of hype, maybe not so much pressure, but just feeling yourself a little bit, that tells me a lot. And then you got Washington a week later. And then you get Michigan. And it's okay, Michigan's good, but they're not the final boss of the Big Ten. And then you got Ohio State looming after that. So kind of in levels, we're going to figure out how good Indiana is kind of week by week.
David, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time. David Ubben, theathletic.com with us. Good to have him on. Good to see him with us on 365 Sports. That article in theathletic.com, which is titled, What's Going On with Alabama and Tennessee Coaches Who Faced Them, Weigh In. Part of one of the quotes was from one of the coaches, staffs would psych themselves out if they were going to coach against Nick Saban. That's not as extreme there now. One coach saying about the new head coach in Kalen DeBoer. I believe that. I think that probably I don't know about psych themselves out or intimidation or what it might be.
Are you saying Caleb?
I said Kalen. I said Caleb.
Okay, I couldn't tell by the way you said that. Yeah, just making sure.
Caleb DeBoer is his burner account.
Yeah, probably. But
I'll wear whatever shirt I damn well please.
Right, yeah. There's probably something to that. Saban had such an aura and a mystique and just the way he was portrayed. I can see where, younger coaches especially might get a little psyched out by that to the point of it being a detriment, but I also say, too, I think I do enjoy college football more without him at Alabama. It's a very small sample size of a couple months, but it has been kind of refreshing to not have the Saban Alabama road mark there like it has been for the last 20 years, where he's been in the mix to some extent in Tuscaloosa playing for the title, winning the title, being in the playoff, whatever the case may be, nearly every single year for 2 decades. And, yeah, they had a hiccup here and there, and their hiccups, any team, most programs outside of, like, the top 10 would trade for those hiccups, and some of those would be their best years they've ever had. Like, that's how successful Saban was at Alabama. But, I can see where that comes into play, and I can see where it's definitely opened some things up. And, like I said, from my perspective, just watching – I know where it's probably taken away for some people, but it's made it more interesting to me, way more interesting to me.
I am one that I think over the years, unless it's a team that I hate, but I love dynasties. I always have. And not that I liked all the teams that had dynasties, but I really have enjoyed – I really like that. I like to see teams try to – like still waiting for somebody in the first time in 70, 80 years to win 3 consecutive – college football titles.
Look who's part of the problem then.
Yeah, I was going to say, how long do you want it to go? Do you want it to be your entire life as Alabama football?
No.
Yeah.
I've always, here's what I like about
I wanted the Patriots to find, the Chiefs are getting there for me now. It's like, God, we got to watch this for the next 15 years. And it's what the Patriots were. It's like, that was a great story. But after, the 7th Super Bowl, you're like, all right, dude, let's pass it around a little bit here.
They also lost 4 of them, too, which kind of made it interesting, especially when they played the Giants. But I get what you're saying. I think what happens with me on dynasties is if there's someone I like that's involved in one, I love Tom Brady. There's something about him. Not everybody does. And I love listening to Nick Saban at coaching conventions or even his coach's show. Very philosophical. I just kind of enjoyed that. But I can see why a lot of people are glad that he's gone because it now is next man up. And then we'll be saying that about maybe Kirby Smart or Steve Sarkisian or Dan Lanning, who's a young pup. I don't know in some particular
I don't
way.
think so. I think they're all going to beat up on each other. I don't think any of them's going to just go on a Saban run.
It's stunning that no one – what was it, Minnesota, in the 30s or 50s or whatever it was that won 3 in a row? It's never happened. Now, you really think about that. Paul, who's the last Super Bowl team to win 3 in a row?
Nobody, right?
Nobody.
Yeah, nobody.
As good as the Packers were, of course, Lombardi left after the first 2. As good as the Steelers were, they won clumps of one, but they never won 3 in a row. Landry and the Cowboys never did it. Patriots never did it. 49ers never did it. Joe Gibbs never did it with Washington. It's pretty amazing that you just don't see it happen. It's hard. The Super Bowl thing eventually it was hard because you'd get completion or whatever, and some teams, of course, have been able to overcome that a little bit too. All right, around the corner, Seth Russell, former Baylor quarterback, will join us and get his thoughts and opinion on Baylor on the road against Texas Tech.
Here's a little bit of breaking news. Virginia men's basketball coach Tony Bennett expected to announce his immediate retirement. His immediate retirement in a press conference on Friday at 11 a.m.
Are there health problems or something, I wonder? Or
it's just Virginia men's basketball saying he's announced it. I mean, that's what, everybody's going to start speculating on. Yeah, it doesn't say exactly. It just says exactly what I read there. Virginia men's basketball breaking Tony Bennett to announce his immediate retirement in a press conference on Friday at 11 a.m.
All right, so Coach K's been gone for, a couple of years? Who are some other of the college basketball coaches that have just walked away? There's been a couple of other great ones, and now Tony Bennett, great job at Virginia.
Yeah, I don't know all-time, the examples.
No, I'm talking about in the last 2 to 3 years.
College basketball is really not my bag here. I don't know who's what. Coach K, yeah, I don't know.
Coach K, Tony Bennett, Jay Wright.
Jay Wright, that's the one I couldn't think of.
Jay Wright,
yep.
Out of it. And I hope Tony Bennett's okay. I do think that the Virginia fans were getting a little stressed out with we don't need this new ad just caught my eye. It worked when I put it up.
It must have worked. Yeah. Like a billboard. See?
Yeah,
it works.
It works. But I really
Boeheim?
Boeheim. I really do wonder, though, if his style of, if I can keep everybody to 45 points, we'll win.
Yeah, no.
I think the rest of the –
yeah, but that doesn't mean you retire on October 17th.
No. I just wonder if maybe there might be a little bit of release.
I hope it's not a health issue.
So, I hope it's not either.
Yeah. Bob Huggins ran himself away, or unfortunately. Tara Van Deventer, the head coach at Stanford, is women's basketball, but she just decided to walk away.
Muffet McGraw did too, so yeah.
Who?
Muffet McGraw.
Okay.
Yes, that was.
Is she any different than Muffin
Yes.
McGraw?
Yeah,
same woman, isn't it?
Yes,
It's the same woman.
You wanted to call her Muffin. Her name was Muffet.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Okay, BYU's Coach Rose left due to pancreatic cancer. That's a health issue, but you just wonder. You just wonder. I mean, they started practicing this month. There's been secret scrimmages this month.
Yeah, weeks before we're to start the season.
About 2 weeks before you're expected to start the season. All right, when we come back, Seth Russell. Also today, we will have our Big 12 South Pod at 4:25 with Texas Tech, leading the way because of the 4 schools, they're the ones that won last weekend, and they're on a winning streak. Then TCU, Oklahoma State, and also Baylor. Roger Wallace, who covers UT by the radio broadcast with Craig Way as the color analyst, will join us today in the 5 o'clock hour. This is 365 Sports. Baylor alumni fan engagement. I traded a text with Doug Furch, in fact, the other day. I said, okay, so if somebody's having a watch party, pick a city. Let's say, where?
Dallas.
I can't hear you.
Dallas.
I'm sorry. I don't have my earbuds in. Or let's just say Chicago. And you're a Baylor fan, you're wanting to do you're going to have a watch party. Alums, you're going to get together to watch. Maybe it's the Texas Tech game coming up on Saturday afternoon. If you want help publicizing that, yes, you have wherever you are where you can have your group of friends. You have Facebook and all the other stuff you can do. But you can also contact Paul Thorpe, who can help you out with any kind of watch party, standard promotion, and more. Watch parties, Paul Thorpe, Paul_Thorpe, THORP, at Baylor.edu. If you want to discuss any standard promotion or tailgating, you could also contact Doug Furch, who's a great friend of what we do at the Baylor Alumni Fan Engagement.
It's time to score big savings at the Kickoff to Savings event on GMC trucks at Richard Carr GMC. Take the winning drive with the Texas Truck MVP. GMC Sierra is the best truck on the road. Save $9,000 on 2024 GMC Sierra SLT models in stock with 2010 or newer approved trade-in. Plus, qualified buyers get 1.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. See dealer for details. Save big and score your deal at the Kickoff to Savings event at Richard Carr GMC.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield and John Maddox understand these are difficult and changing times we live in, but they know how important your financial investments are to you. So is your financial advisor staying in touch with you and helping you navigate today's financial climate? When you invest with Edward Jones Financial Advisors Josh Satterfield, John Maddox, and Sean Carter, they will provide their time and experience to help you reach your goals. And like coaching athletes, investing money is about time, patience, and encouragement. Josh Satterfield and Sean Carter on Wycon Road off Bagby, and John Maddox on Sapphire Boulevard in Hewitt. Proud sponsors of Midway Panthers football. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Membership SIPC.
El Conquistador Restaurants are a very proud sponsor of the Midway Panthers, have been owned and operated by the Gonzalez family since 1969. El Conquistador is recognized annually as a local favorite with their fast and friendly service. Dine in or order takeout and enjoy your favorite Tex-Mex items as well as several traditional menu items. Catering is also available with 3 locations to serve you: Waco, Belmead, and Hillsboro. The Gonzalez family thanks you in Waco and the surrounding area for your continued support of 55 years in business. Go Panthers!
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Containing only 95 calories and 2.6 carbs.
Our segments, when they involve Baylor, also brought to you by Richard Carr Buick GMC Cadillac. People you can count on Loop 340 Imperial Drive in Waco. Seth Russell, a great player at Baylor, a part of Baylor Athletics pregame show. He joins us. Greg Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak on 365 Sports.
I think we need to do better for Seth.
What do you mean?
I mean, we need to say Seth Russell, the greatest quarterback in Baylor history.
Hey, now.
Would you
don't stretch too far?
Yeah. Would you just say, "Hey, thanks, Paul"?
Yeah. I'll fight Bryce Petty right here.
You know who would be upset? Don Truhl. Yeah. Don Truhl would say, "Wait a minute."
Yeah.
Who was a heck of a Seth, when you watch Baylor right now, you are on teams that made quite the run, obviously. Memorable wins and memorable seasons, and you were a part of that run that Baylor had up until everything fell apart. What does this do to you just as a former player?
You know, you try to find the positive, right? I mean, it's frustrating to see, not to discredit any of those players and guys out there. I know they're trying their hardest and they're doing what they can with what they're being coached to do. But on the flip side, it kind of gets old, right? I mean, whenever you work really hard as a program to build it up to what it was, and then everything kind of started to fall apart, and it's just been really hard to kind of build back up to that level again, other than 21. And so, but it's on our end. I mean, we're, as a former player who's been a part of the program, it's not easy to win. It is extremely hard, and I was fortunate enough to be a part of a program that was about winning, right? And we won consistently. And I think watching the past, 5, 6, 7, 8 years of ups and downs, there just hasn't really been any consistency on the winning side. So when you don't really know what winning feels like, it's hard to know how to shoot for it. And so, I know these guys are doing their best. They're trying the hardest. And it's just the outcomes just haven't been what we've expected from a Baylor, from a Baylor fan base who is used to winning and scoring a lot of points and doing all that on a more fun level.
Seth, this team, if you go back, Colorado game was the kind of place where it really got exposed. They've got guys, and look, Shadir Sanders, Travis Hunter, all those guys, but even LeJontay Wester and other players are huge. They, in the moment, know it's time to make a play, and they go do it. In that same game, Baylor, given those same opportunities, did make those plays. Is that something you have, or is it something you can learn?
A little bit of both. To be put in those positions, those have to be, if you don't know how to work in those certain circumstances, or you've never been in that type of circumstance, then how do you react? Right? It's kind of you do it, you learn it by doing it. And so, whether that's, not performing, in practice, or preparing for it, practice, on a daily basis. I mean, we didn't do a whole lot of back in my day, we didn't do a whole lot of Hail Mary setups or anything like that, but at least we were ingrained to do it at least maybe once or twice, maybe 3 times in the preseason, just throughout the weeks. And so, but then again, you have to be a dog, right? You have to, your football IQ has to be at a level to where, even if you've never been in that circumstance before, you probably watch enough football, right, to know that Hail Marys are going to be a part of the game. And how are you going to react whenever your name is called? What's your 111th? What are you supposed to do? And just go out and make a play. And I think, just maybe the moment got too big for some of those guys, or maybe they just weren't, put in a position to execute at a high level.
Seth, do you think this team has an identity right now?
I don't think so. From the outside looking in, now the guys inside, they could probably say differently because they're a part of that program. But it's hard to find an identity when where there's more losses than wins.
Right.
Consistently over the past 4 to 5 years, it's hard to find an identity. I mean, because if you're not winning, then you don't want to have that identity that you're basing your foundation around. You want to find a different one that is revolved around winning. And so I don't think they do. I think they have an idea of what they want to be. I know at least on the offensive side, I mean, Sawyer is holding that program together. I mean, let's be honest, right? He's slinging the ball around. He's got a lot of weight on his shoulders. I think he's handling it extremely well with what he's been given. Our run game has just been non-existent the past couple of weeks. I think our leading rusher averages 2.6 yards a carry in conference play, which is not great. And so, identity, I don't think they have one just yet.
You had, and there was a run where you had large, as Steve Sarkisian now says, as Texas is building up, large human beings in front of you, whether they were junior college players that transferred or guys that just marinated for a year or two, but you had some absolute dudes in front of you on the offensive line. I don't see anything. There's guys with bodies that are big, et cetera, but do you see any dudes on the offensive line for Baylor?
Comparatively to when I played, no. But then again, it's a different style of football, right? I mean, our style was, you're going to smash you in the mouth, and we're gonna get. All of this is developed in the offseason, right? Whether you're big, small. You look at some of those guys that came in, from freshman year. Looking back, I guess it would have been technically sophomore year, like Pat Colbert, for example. He came in weighing a $180, $190, right? He was not.
Yep.
Soaking wet, but he worked. He busted his tail. The program put him into the upper 200s, right? Maybe even close to 3, to where, he developed into his body. And so, it's I think just the development, whether that's off season, whatever it is. That's what's going to set you up for the type of play that you want. Now, granted, with Spav coming in this year, maybe the off-season regime is not set to what he's expected, right? And I think that can be set up after year 2 if we get there. And so, I don't see. I know they're wanting to be some dogs up front. I know they're wanting to get grimy, but let's just, not play dirty, but let's play, aggressive. Let's not get pushed around. Let's really do, and maybe that's a scheme, right? I don't know. I'm trying to put the pieces together just like you guys are. And so, to answer your question, no, I don't see any comparatively to whenever I played.
Do you think that the coaching staff has done a better job this year of putting them in positions to win?
I think so. And you see that just from the style of play, right? And when you had Grimes in here last year, it was like watching paint dry. To be honest, it was not something exciting to watch. At least now, hey, they're throwing the ball down the field, right? They're letting Sawyer do what he does. Even when Shapen was here, he could sling it, but he was only able to do it whenever he had to. It wasn't built into the offense. And so, I like the trajectory. Now I know there's a lot of emotions tied into this season, right? With a lot of stakes that a lot of things on in the forefront. A lot of people on the hot seat right now, and I think it's you're seeing a different side, I think, of Aranda. just being on the defense. He's trying to bring out some emotion, even though he's said in the past he is not that type of guy. And so he's really trying to do something different, which I think is helping the defense and helping the team at least see some fight, because we didn't see that last year, right? And so I think just all around, I mean, I'm trying to be as optimistic as possible, but we have to be realistic as well.
Yeah, I mean, eventually you have to have results, and it's crazy because if you want to be optimistic, it's like one play in the Colorado game and you win that. Like, make a field goal, catch a pass, and like they win that game. And there's been 2 or 3 games where it's like just a single play, a single deep ball that's just a little bit off, and they win that game against BYU after a crazy comeback. It's that close, but that's also what makes it so incredibly frustrating. Sawyer Robertson, I think as a collective, weren't anticipating him being the guy, throughout the season maybe, and he basically has been. I mean, DeQuan Finn got hurt pretty much right out of the gates, and it's been Sawyer since then, really. What have been your thoughts on what you've seen from him? He seems to kind of be how he goes. The rest of the offense and the rest of the team almost seems to go.
Yeah, I've been happy with him. I mean, I said this a couple of weeks, I think, on the pregame show where, we haven't seen, like, Sawyer's full potential, right? Because I think to his defense, I mean, it's a new system. Everybody's trying to understand it. And I think, with what Spav wants to do with this offense, he's got to have some guys that take the top off the defense. And he just doesn't have that. I mean, Baldwin, you can argue, does, but, I mean, he shows up once every 4 games, and it's just, it's something that, you need consistency. I mean, you got Hal Presley out there, you got Cameron. I mean, you got all these guys that I think are good possession receivers, right? They're not somebody that have 3 or 4 or 5 different gears like you did with, like, Corey Coleman and Kendall Wright and Katie Cannon and those guys that you put it out there.
Yeah.
They're coming down with it, right? And, I mean, you think you're going to overthrow it by 15 yards, but they're going to find a way to get to it. And we just don't have those guys. And I think that really handcuffs what I think Sawyer's potential is with this offense, because he can swing it. He's shown that he's got the arm strength to really put the ball wherever he wants on the field, and it goes from feeling free to let it rip down the field to where you have to put it on a receiver, that may not be able to stretch the field. That's what gets really difficult from a quarterback standpoint. But at least he's learning his receivers and what he can and can't do, stretching the ball down the field.
Yeah, you can't do this, but if you put Corey Coleman, Katie Cannon, oh my goodness, Godley, among others, out there, and had it would, but they're not there. You can't do it unless you're playing Goodley, Antoine Goodley, out there as well. 2013 and 14, you were a part of those Big 12 championship teams. They're being honored finally in November. There was a reason they had to wait, but they're going to be honored. We've had a few of them on. Bryce Petty, of course, and you know him. Ahmad Dixon. What are your thoughts about finally having some of these guys come back and be honored, rewarded, etc., with a ceremony in November against TCU?
Yeah, it's about dang time. No, I'm excited. I mean, it's so cool to be a part of a program like that. And then, arguably the 15 and 16, we had a chance as well, but, numbnuts over here decided to run the ball a couple times, and put the season at jeopardy, but we don't have to go there. But, I'm excited for those guys. I mean, they busted their tail, they were the leaders, right? I mean, those are the guys that, as they went, we went. And so it's, if they were having a bad day, we were all having a bad day. And they very rarely had bad days, which was really cool to see. But yeah, no, it's exciting to kind of get back out there on the field and be recognized. And I don't know if y'all heard this or not, but Baylor decided that they're going to let us run the line. So
wow.
So that's going to be, I don't know if that's groundbreaking or anything, but that's going to be fun to finally be able to do that. We'll probably see a couple pulled hamstrings, maybe a trip or 2, but
No.
So yeah, no.
I'll tell you what I've told everybody, Bryce. No flip flops. That's I know you're just now seeing it from up top, but my favorite thing is when you see the kids first week out of the gate.
Yeah.
And they've worn their flip-flops to the game, and they're going to decide that they're going to run end line to end line in flip-flops.
And they're going to be a disaster.
And it's not going to end well.
Who's going to get in front of Cyril Richardson? Or maybe make sure you're not in front of him or behind him. Because, I mean, guys like, those are some dudes. Those are the guys I'm talking about that weigh 300 and something pounds. Big men.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm going to stay far away from him.
Seth Russell, former Baylor quarterback, with us, also a part of the Baylor Athletics pregame show on 365 Sports. I had said this before, and somebody in the chat room, Paxton, said, hey, bring it up again. They have a really nice class of 2025 that they hope they can seal and get to in December. But at the same time, Seth, I don't know what's going to happen if things continue to end up with one loss after another. Can you hold the school or the program hostage because of the hope of signing people in December?
You know, it's I mean, you've probably heard this before. In the age of NIL, I mean, anything can happen, right? I mean, even if you had a record-breaking year, I mean, you can have some of these guys coming in and you know, they can get taken, you know, like the Navasone, I mean, for example, right? I mean, he gets last minute gets bought by Oregon. It's just like, I mean, you want to try to do your best from a program standpoint. You want to try to keep these guys, you know, within the program, whether coach is here or not. But I mean, it's I think it's really anybody's game whenever it comes down to, until that name is signed on the dotted line, anything is possible and anything can happen. And, you know, I think that, you know, you have to make a long-term play, right? What's best for the program. If it's loss after loss after loss after loss going through the end of the season, then you can kind of read the writing on the wall, right? But if it's like, hey, we went out, now it gets really gray area, right? That, hey, we're building a program. It's taken 4 or 5 years, but at least we're getting there. So now it's like, now there's harder decisions to be made. And then that could arguably, you know, cause for, you know, to keep those recruits, right? Because they're coming into a building program. They see what the potential could look like, what they could be a part of, you know, changing it back to a winning program. So, I mean, there's a lot of different selling points. It just, it's all going to depend on what happens on the field the next half of the season.
South Baylor right now, they just need a win. They're playing in Lubbock against Joey McGuire. Do you remember a game when you were running the show? You guys usually pretty much dictated almost every week. And yeah, there's going to be a game or two where somebody else was pretty good too. Do you remember a game during that 2-year stretch for you when you started where there was a game where you just felt like, man, we got to win this game or the wheels are going to fall off?
Yeah. I think it was my senior year when we played UT in Austin.
Yep. Yep.
You know, that was, I mean, y'all could probably remember it, you know, pretty vividly. That's when all the, you know, another article came out, right? You know, another thing, just one after another. And I mean, I remember vividly, you know, after that game, I mean, I don't think I played harder in any other game than that one. And we still came up short. And so, which, you know, was completely defeating for the program. And then, you know, one after another. And then it just kind of started that domino effect. Because I think the next week was, I can't remember the next week. I think it was Oklahoma, or Oklahoma was coming up, and then I break my ankle, and it just kind of started to unravel from there. But I would say, yeah, the UT game in 16 was kind of that game that we had to win to continue forward, and we just weren't able to pull it off.
Yeah, that was the Wall Street Journal article that came out the day before you guys left for Austin.
Yep.
Can you try to describe that day at practice, or was there even a practice? I mean, that's the day before you're going to play, but I heard it was just just anger, frustration. We're not going to play. I'm not sure if that's true or not. I'm asking you.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a lot of emotion tied to all of it. You know, I don't know if it was much we didn't want to play. It was more of we wanted to play to try to right a wrong, right? To kind of prove ourselves. I mean, we had our conspiracy theories, which, you know, some of it could be proven, some of it maybe not, just of like who were the ties to all the things being released and whatnot. But yeah, no, there was a lot of frustration. I remember we were already at the hotel in Waco, I think we just gotten back from our walkthrough. We were going through our film breakdown, walking to it. I remember everybody just being super frustrated. And I finally got the news of what happened and the release of the article. And it was just, everybody was just, really upset of, how could people say things when they have no idea what's even going on. And just, but sometimes that's the media. They speak out of one end and they don't really know the other end of the facts, but that's just part of it. And so, it was not a fun evening, to say the least.
Had you been able to close out that game in Austin? Because you guys, it just seemed like you were so close so many times of like the dagger. There was a fumble near the goal line, and I forgot if it was Shock or I was Shock didn't even play in the second half, but there was a fumble. If you guys could have won that game, do you feel like it would have been held together longer, or was that inevitable?
I think so. I definitely think so. Because that just would have given us more ammunition to, because Brawls, Art was always saying, hey, go out and prove yourself, right? Hey, we're always the underdog. We're always going to be bet against. Go out and prove yourself, of why you should be on the field. Nobody wants us out there. Nobody wants to play against us. They were all scared of us, but they're going to do everything they can to tear us down. And so, that was just one shot that I feel like, with the loss, with the L in the loss column, it started to slowly, and then the one thing after another, with me breaking my ankle, and then it just slowly started to kind of slip off the face of of the mountain.
Seth, I think you kind of mentioned it there at the very beginning, but as much as it's tough to look back on some of those things, all the great memories that you also have to look back on, just what's kind of the mood amongst the guys that you keep in touch with, and just the feeling about having this opportunity here in a couple of weeks to just all be back together, be back at McLean, and be celebrated.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing we were all talking about is who's going to pull the hammy the first.
Yeah.
Running the line, and then of course everybody gets back together. It's been 14, my math, 10 years, 10 11 years since we've really been back together.
Isn't that crazy?
So
10 years.
It's every time I say it, it just kind of surprises me. But everybody's excited. It's good to get back, and obviously against a good team against TCU. You got some. It's cool to kind of inadvertently support Kendall and Buckles and Cos and those guys who are going on the TCU sideline, and still kind of include them in on the without actually including them, which was kind of a part of the design as well, which we're really excited about. So because they were a big part of the winning program and tradition at Baylor, and so we're all pumped, man. We're just it's finally here, and hopefully we can leave McLean Stadium happy with a win.
And I don't know if you broke the news with the line or not, but I just want to be clear. So we are going to break the news that the 13 and 14 teams, when they're honored on November the 1st against TCU, you guys will be running the Baylor line. That's what you said, right?
That is correct.
Wow.
So don't shoot the messenger.
Okay, yeah, no.
No,
I think that's cool. I think it's cool.
We're absolutely going to quote you.
Seth Russell.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hey,
go ahead.
And Seth Russell said he's going to beat Corey Coleman in the race.
Yes.
That's the other thing
Coleman, Goodley, all those guys.
Katie Cannon.
Yeah.
Tevin Reese.
I did say that.
Yes.
I did say that.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm telling you what, that would have been, those were the days, right? I have to ask you, because we brought up the anniversary against TCU, the celebration. What were your thoughts for a guy that Baylor football hated in Gary Patterson being at Baylor practicing during the spring?
Oh shoot, I think it's just college rivalry, right? Anywhere you go, if you have an opposing team that is a rival, you're not going to like them. Whether it's if you had Jesus over there, you probably wouldn't like him. Let's just be honest. And so, but it's. But I think, Gary, I haven't met him. I met him a couple times just like at, like media days and things like that. But I never met him whenever he was on staff at Baylor. But I heard nothing but good things. There's a reason why he was a phenomenal defense. He's a phenomenally defensive-minded coach. That is his MO, and he always gave us trouble when we played them. And so I think it was smart for Aranda to bring him in, at least to be a consultant at whatever level he was, just to kind of help bring an edge. to that defense, because that's what they needed, right? They needed some outside input, some guys who were really, really smart on the defensive side, and he falls in one of the best defensive coaches, I think, in Big 12, history. So, I mean, I have no ill will towards him. I mean, he's never done anything to me. I think just from the the Baylor TCU rivalry, you just have a natural, I wouldn't say hate, but a unlikeness for somebody who's, not a part of your private school program.
That's why you're classy as you could be, man. Appreciate it. Really appreciate the insight and some of your feelings towards so much that's going on this year, but also later in the year and also during your great run. There's always a little bit of what could have been, but I know that you're very, very deep with your faith, and I don't know if you even go there. Do you?
I mean, every once in a while, I think I think it's natural, humanly, to go back and look at the what if. But I mean, I take it as like I'll go back and look at the what if, but then I'm like, wow, like how blessed am I, right? With where I'm at in life. Like if those things hadn't happened, where would I be, right? Would I have a wife? Would I have amazing family? Would I have 2 kids that are extremely healthy and like we're thriving? And so, it's never like what if in a negative way. It's just like that would have been cool, but life would have been completely different, right? And Lord had a different plan for me, and this is where He's led me. And I mean, I'm never going to go against that.
I'll never forget when you proposed on top of the bridge, right? The Humphrey Bridge. That was awesome. That was awesome. Yep. Thank you very much, Seth. Appreciate your time. Loved watching you play. Appreciate your opinion, input, and also knowledge. Seth Russell, you talk about dual threat. Some really good stuff there, some stories that I'm glad we were able to get into that. But as Craig mentioned, also on that day against TCU when they honor back-to-back Big 12 title champions, they will also get to run. And Erica Creech in the chat room, make sure you stretch. Yeah, there will be some pulled hammies.
Man,
yeah.
No doubt about it. Like those guys, it's so weird getting older, right? Yeah. I'm sure for Seth it just feels like, that was a couple years ago. No, it wasn't. It was 10. It was 10 years ago. That's insane. And so, yeah, there's going to be a lot of guys that I think need to start now, start the exercises and a little jog around the block or whatever, because it's 100 yards, right? It's 100 yards. I don't think many of those guys have probably ran 100 yards in the last 10 years.
It's close. It might even, it's about 100,
Because they stopped before the end zone, but it's essentially, but it is still almost end line to end line. So
remember that time when RG3 was here and his wife was here and he ran the line and some guy around the side tried to then beat him to the line, and then RG3 had to turn on the jets, and he did. There gets some egos involved.
I saw him in the press box sweating like through his clothes and having it go on television after that.
Yeah. He's done that as a broadcaster when he was doing games on television for ESPN.
Seth Russell was a great player, and there's always going to be what ifs. I mean, I know he can't really look at that, but certainly, I mean, you look at that 2015 year, and I know it was you need to kind of all jog our memories because Seth was talking about the Texas game, and he couldn't really remember. They got beat by 40 by TCU the following week.
Yeah.
40.
No, that's what I'm saying.
They got beat by 40.
Yeah.
After nearly starting 7-0 and beating Texas, but losing there at the end of that game, and otherwise, that season probably goes a lot differently. But I don't know, like if that season goes differently, does that make things worse? That they're like winning 10, 11 games and they're playing for another title and all this other nonsense is going on? Like I don't know.
I don't know. I just felt that whole year that if they could keep winning, they would stave it off.
Well, that's why I asked.
And exactly, yeah. And he kind of confirmed that the minute that they lost,
it was all.
And like that Wall Street Journal article had come out, and there was, and here's the thing that just the super sad part about those guys on the football team, because at that point, I mean, there were still some little things that happened after that, but the guys who had caused this issue were all gone. The coach, like all of that. So then you had kind of all these people coming in saying how this happened and them taking the brunt of it. And they took the brunt of it because there were a bunch of people who had who were not inside the athletic department that were more at fault, that were deflecting blame.
Yeah, those players were getting all of the flack outside of obviously their coach, but every player was painted as though they were a rapist, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'll never forget some of the UT media. Like, I don't blame them for the story, but there was some nonsense going on. Like, there's an article that one of the sites didn't feel comfortable even printing on their own website because it was such made-up garbage about running through lawyers' offices to get these documents and holding a baby. And I'm not even going to say who it was because it was total bullshit. It was totally made up because otherwise, why would you put it on a different website with all this stuff? So there was like some stuff like that going on where
I'm the one who told y'all it was because I was there.
No, I know. But so like there was like, so when we were talking about some of the media and how they were acting, it's like that kind of like there was stories being made up that a site that otherwise is reporting all over the story is saying, like, we're not going to put that on our site. You know, like that kind of thing was going on too. So it's just shenanigans and just ugliness. And the players, the point being, were caught up in this to where I don't think many of them had the slightest idea of what was going on. They're 18, 19, and all of a sudden they're like just, you know, the face of a scandal. And, you know, next thing you know, ESPN's parked out for like the next 200 days on campus.
Than that. They were there for about a year and a half.
And 200 is probably putting it mildly. But yeah, I hated that in regards to the players specifically because there's 100 guys and they're all of a sudden all being painted with this huge broad brush. And, you know, a lot of old axes to grind were coming up as a result of that because it was all of a sudden it was an opportunity to let some old demons go about art in particular. You know, so that just avalanched to where it became about more than just specifically a certain story. It was like, well, time to air the grievances about what a, you know, bastard, you know, or whatever. And it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was just
never before, not Penn State, not Michigan State, nor anywhere else has anyone like camped out on.
No, they definitely did that at Penn State. They had a whole Sports Center special at Penn State.
You think so, Paul?
Yeah, Penn State
absolutely did.
Penn State, but what Penn State was able to do, because they didn't deflect the blame on anybody but the people who were responsible. Like Penn State, I mean, they won their lawsuit, yes, but there was not a lot of subterfuge about like, well, it was this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. They didn't move the pieces around the board.
You didn't have James Franklin pointing at the president and his AD, and they're fighting with the president. And the president's like, that was what
unified response.
Yeah, they had a unified response, whereas Baylor's became like, who's going to take the fall, and nobody wants to take the fall. They're trying to make the other guy take the fall, so then that made everything uglier. But
I think if go ahead.
I think that was a time period where, you know, you look back on a lot of it and just, you know, absorb it a little bit differently than you do in the heat of the moment. But when I started hearing Seth recalling the stuff that happened prior to the TCU game, like every Friday was a freaking nightmare. Every Friday was like, what's going to come out to this Friday? Because it was always on a Friday, a news drop at like 4:49 or something. Boom, here's this story. And that's exactly what happened with the the Texas situation, I should say, the Texas situation. And that was a wild time.
It was the loss to Texas, which was heart-wrenching and had a chance. And when they lost that game, they were done for the rest of the year. They all found a way to get back together enough between the loss at the end of the year to beat Boise State in Phoenix to close it out, to at least have, okay, we can do this, when they kind of all said, okay, we have one more to get to. But those 6 after Texas, that was a disaster.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know to ask, but does Sean Aikman get to come back and get honored?
He should.
I don't know why
he should,
not.
right.
Yeah, he's
but I don't know on his end, I don't know how comfortable he is after everything that occurred.
There's probably going to be some players that don't want to be a part of it.
Sure, and I totally understand that.
Yeah,
I totally understand that.
Yep. All right, thank you, Seth Russell, and a lot of you who are in the chat room. It was about the sexual assault scandal, Samu Kawachu and others. Sean Aikman was accused. Even before that, Tevin Elliott
went to court, got cleared, or got not guilty, and all that.
And story after story. And prior to the Texas game, it was a Wall Street Journal article that came out that seems to have been fed by even somebody involved with Baylor.
It was.
And They still played a hell of a game, but they had the ball 2 or 3 times to put the dagger in. UT kept fighting and scratching and clawing, eventually won the game. And the next week, as Craig said, it was the most difficult thing I've ever covered in my life. The anger that was inside McLean Stadium, and Gary Patterson and TCU beat the shit out of Baylor that night.
I wanted to go home all day long.
Yeah.
Like the minute we got there in the morning, I was like, "Can we go home?"
Yep. All right, we gotta do our Big 12 South pod, Craig's pod, Craig's off the radar. We're just gonna go from the pod right into Craig's off the radar. We don't have anybody until after 5:10 with Roger Wallace. This is 365 Sports. I mentioned earlier Don Shumidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco. That's where a retired stockbroker who had a birthday last week, he called them. Joshua and Cheyenne are the ones who run it, and made an order. Not just with cigars, but also with some other things they have, including fresh coffee beans. That's where I go. If I buy cigars, that's where I go. I've gone online with some specials that I get an email or something like that, and they have everything you need, including every brand, from Rocky Patel to Arturo Fuente to Romeo and Julieta to Macanudo to H. Upman to Cohiba, Padron, My Father. You want it, they have it. And then they have a wall to the right when you walk into the 48-foot walk-in humidor with all of the brands of Texas cigars. And this thing is catching fire now, and a lot of people are hearing about it. And that is what, in fact, Retired Stockbroker, among others, ordered. They have fresh coffee beans. They have, if you are an old school type, like you have pipes, they can help fix what you have, clean it up, and also have new ones if you want. And then the CBD product, Vita Dreams. You take a gummy or 2 or whatever it takes, and you rest peacefully when you go to fall asleep. Your mind kind of just calms down a little bit. I've done that. It's not something, it's a CBD product. It's not something that makes you high. It's something that relaxes your body, and it works. Don Shumidor and Coffee Beans with Joshua and Cheyenne between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Pioneer Steel & Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel & Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
Some say a dog is a man's best friend. But I tell you what, boys, you better think again. 'Cause there ain't nothing better than some cows, pigs, and turkeys too. I love to cover them in sauce down at Rudy's Barbecue.
Bring all your friends to Rudy's for some tasty oak smoke barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. The Big 12 South, 4 teams. We might have an analyst that covers a team in the Big 12, or 2 or 3, or a coach, or even players, and we break the 16 teams into 4. This was Craig's idea, calling it the pods, and this is the Big 12 South pod. Texas Tech, TCU, Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Texas Tech, if they win again. The others in this pod may need to be dismissed, relegated into a 5th pod. Texas Tech is at home. They have won the close games. They have also been able to win a game on the road, of course, at Arizona. Had the one bad loss earlier to Washington State, but they're at home. Joey McGuire. Last time they played Baylor in Lubbock, Baylor thumped them pretty good. Now, Tech beat Baylor's, you know what, last year badly. Paul Catalina,
yeah,
Joey McGuire. Huh?
Yeah, who didn't?
Yeah.
Join the club.
Joey McGuire. And you know how, and even we talked about this when he was on earlier on Monday. Obviously, this has special meaning.
Yeah, it certainly does. I think that this is a rivalry anyway, or like this 2 teams that don't like each other, and then when you've got coach staff transference that adds to it. The way Tech is playing right now, I just don't see Baylor being able to score enough, and I don't see them being able to stop Tech enough, especially given what Taj Brooks did to them last year. I don't see much different on his end. In fact, I think he's better this year than he even was last year. Tech hasn't had to play. The biggest thing is so far to this point in the season, they haven't had the merry-go-round at quarterback that's been over the last few years. And Baron Morton's gotten to play every single week, and that's helped them be consistent on offense. And there's a reason they're 5-1. There's a reason they're in contention for the conference. And I just think that they're just a lot better right now, and they're playing confident, and Baylor's not.
I don't think that they're that much better than Baylor. I think they've just been much more fortunate in how games have ended. I think Baylor's got a way you can say, hey, we could very easily be, 4-2. And you can look at Tech's schedule and say they could be like 2-4. Right? I mean, Baylor, you lose the game to Colorado that you had no business losing, and the BYU game, which if you just start a little bit better, I'm not going to give them any benefit of the doubt. Like Iowa State beat them up, but for Texas Tech, I mean, you barely got a lot out alive in your opener versus ACU at home. Like they pushed you to the ultimate limit. Arizona State game, an 8-point game. Cincinnati's missing a field goal to send that to overtime at the end of the game. Arizona, a 6-point win. Even though you dominated a lot of portions of that game, that was still a close game when all was said and done. You let them have an opportunity. So it's not like Tech's just blowing people away and Baylor's getting blown out is my point. So I think that leans towards 2 teams who are not that far off from one another. But when you start to break down the differences, I do like the fact that Tech is playing in Lubbock for their purposes. I do like the fact that they have a lot more confidence, belief. I especially like that they know who they are. They have an identity. It's West Texas tough. It's Take 3. It's the brand. It's for Baylor, it's I don't know. I
Did your
still don't know
mic
what the
go
hell
off
it
for a
is.
second?
I don't know what their identity is.
No identity, none.
It was the people over players, and a person over player, and they realized, like, that's a terrible identity when you're trying to win football games because you need the players to play and not just be good people. So I think that's where Texas Tech really has the significant advantages, is just knowing who they are. They're great about making the timely play. They're great about making the plays that you need to win, and Baylor's not. And those are the big differences in where their records sit. Texas Tech's also played a lot of games at home. This is yet another one. They're very good at Jones AT&T, so I think they win this game. I think they move to 6-1. That'll be a big deal. And then it's a matter of, like, okay, well, how high can we take this? 8, 9, 10? Like, what are we talking about here? But take care of this one and then have that conversation, and I think that they should. I think for Baylor, I think it'll be an admirable effort, but I just can't trust them to go win a game anywhere, much less in Lubbock.
Yeah, this also, if Tech just, like, farts around and has a couple of things go wrong, this would be a screeching halt, like hitting a concrete guard.
This would be a bad loss.
Yeah, it would
be a bad loss.
Because right now things feel good, and you can see it. They're not flawless by any means. They've got some warts. Most everybody does, but Texas Tech, Baylor in that one. Now,
I think Baron Morton's played very solid. Taj Brooks is obviously tremendous, and he's the engine in that whole machine. But they've got some playmaking wide receivers that kind of do a set of different things, and that defense is a question mark. But I don't know that this is the week that those things necessarily get taken advantage of. They could, but I'll lean Tech at home.
Two teams playing each other. The focus is on TCU with the Big 12 South pod. They're at Utah. Two teams that desperately need a win.
Yeah, I don't know who to pick in this game. I lean Utah slightly, but if you look at, like, really any predictions, like, I think everybody's just – let's just say this. It's pretty much a toss-up game is what this is. I mean, I don't think there's a great feel for Utah. I don't think there's a great feel for TCU at the moment. The big thing for TCU is Josh Hoover has to stop throwing interceptions. They have to stop fumbling. They have to stop turning the ball over. That is absolutely killing them. Whether they can run or whether they just choose not to run, like, I guess pick a moment and have that conversation, because it's one or the other most of the time. The bottom line is they don't run for whatever reasons they've decided. They are a pass team, and so when you're passing all the time and your guy's suddenly throwing picks, then that's very problematic. And that's been the case here recently for TCU. That Houston game was an atrocious loss. Like, that's just an inexcusable loss at home for Sonny Dykes, and that's why the heat's really getting turned up after the early couple losses, because it's one thing to lose. It's another thing to turn around and get beat at home by arguably the worst team in the league. So interested to see what they look like on the other side of this bye. I do think they still have some talent that's capable of winning a few games down the stretch. Like, I think this game's winnable. Well, it's the Big 12. They're all winnable, but can they clean up some of the mistakes offensively? Can Hoover protect the football a bit better? And can this defense be any better? At this point, there's nothing drastic that's going to occur, but that's obviously been a big disappointment with Andy Avalos taking over. And Joe Gillespie, who was the defensive coordinator and the scapegoat last year, is having a good old time back in the high school game, and we've enjoyed covering him. So thank you for that, Sonny Dykes. That's worked out well for us, actually.
Absolutely, and it's not like he got stupid overnight. Not a lot of coaches, again, it's not like Sonny Dykes did either, but there are issues there at TCU, no question.
And this is a toss-up to me. Like, TCU could go win this, and Utah could win. Like, I don't know, flip a coin.
I'm going to take Utah at home. I think they're going to go back to basics. You hear about that? Go back to basics. Now, what are the basics compared to what they're used to? No. But I think that they'll go back to basics. They sure can't get into a track.
I think Mekhi Bernard is a big part of this. And look, they can't stop the run. And the other thing TCU can't do is run it. So because of that, you give the Utah defense, pretty much the chance to rush for and drop everybody else back. And I think that becomes really, really problematic for TCU. But yeah, they're just. Josh Hoover, he's actually on the top 5 today. I think he's one of the most improved players in the country, but he can't throw interceptions because he can't run the ball. So, it's all on him, which is not really fair. But if it's all on him, then he can't make those mistakes. That's the big thing. He's 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions right now. And this, a good chunk of those interceptions have led to those losses that they have, although he's far from their biggest problem.
All 6 have come in the last 3 games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Have they really?
Yeah.
No,
He's had 2 in each of the last 3 games.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
2 of those are losses.
Yeah. And so he's got to fix that. And it's not fair that he's the only one that right now is not allowed to make a mistake, but unless the running game gets better, that's where their offense is going to be for the rest of the year.
Is he to TCU what Sawyer is for Baylor?
I was going to say pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, those 2 teams are such mirror images of each other in every single way.
All right, TCU, and they need a win. Utah, obviously, in a free fall, but now the king of free fall in the Big 12 right now. With all due respect, other teams are not as good or worse, but Oklahoma State with losses to Utah, K-State, West Virginia, 3 good teams, and now on the road against BYU on a Friday night game in Provo on ESPN.
Whew, don't love this for you, Cowboys fans. I think this is a unique challenge going up to Provo on a Friday night. Vampire Cougs in full effect with the late kickoff, and that's just a kind of a thing that people talk about when it comes to just BYU playing at night, in particular the Vampire Cougs. So they're going to have the full Vampire Cougs experience. I found this interesting. Mike Gundy's never played or never coached. I don't know if he ever played. I don't think he played either, but had never coached a game at Provo. And I heard that and I was like, do they know what they're getting into on Friday night? Like, I do wonder if there's an element of understanding just how chaotic it's going to be in Provo, because we've seen how it's derailed a lot of other teams. Kansas State here in recent memory got very much sidetracked by the atmosphere in Provo. So that's another element. In addition to the fact that BYU is just a really good team, it gives you a lot of problems if you played in Timbuktu at noon on a Saturday. That would still be problematic for you given your deficiencies. And what are those deficiencies right now? I would love for any Oklahoma State fan to tell me how to fill in these blanks, because I have not seen official word and I've been busy today, so maybe it's out there and I've missed it for some reason. But who's the starting quarterback?
Garrett Rangel.
Okay, it is going to be Rangel.
Yeah,
is Ollie Gordon playing?
I don't know that.
I don't even know if it matters, but it does matter.
Well, I just saw a tweet from Ollie Gordon from back on September 21st. This just popped up. This was after things kind of started to slip. Count us out if you want to. It'll be your biggest regret. That was a month ago.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I like Ollie Gordon, but I also think maybe some of the success last year has aided in some of the difficulties of this year. Sure, the O-line, and sure, quarterback play, and sure, the defense, but I think maybe a little look in the mirror, too. I think everybody can do that in Stillwater right now, Mike Gundy included. So they've got a difficult test against a difficult team in a difficult atmosphere and a lot of question marks. And I just don't feel great about picking them in any way, shape, or form in this game. So they're staring at 3-4 and 0-4 in the conference after this weekend. If they go pull a massive upset, I will give them all sorts of flowers on Monday, but I just don't see it right now.
What kind? Yeah. Roses?
Yeah, they'll need it.
Whatever they want. They would deserve it.
Anything but carnations.
But
right?
look, even wet blanket. He said they're conceding the season because they're going to Rangel over Zane Flores. But I don't know. I don't know the details of that competition. I don't know.
Well,
Zane has been
a lot of times
banged up.
Our fans, viewers who are fans, is making is Flores 100%? Is this the only option other than Bowman? And so I don't know that, but appreciate a lot of you guys for the feedback who follow Oklahoma State.
But look, they hit the wall with Alan Bowman and what they could do, and he.
I mean, it's the defense is the biggest issue, but it doesn't help him at all. No.
So we'll see with now knowing he's going to be the starter. Can Rangel be better? I don't know. We'll see. I mean, that's all remains to be seen. They have some tremendous skill players, but the offensive line, the defensive line, like the guys you need to make the engine go have not lived up to their billing this year.
Rangel with this quote, I feel like, and this was from Ocali.com, I feel like all the hard work and preparation we had just from my freshman year to last year to this year, it's finally paying off. I'm excited to go out there and just let it all hang out next week against BYU. And, of course, that was last week, and now it is this week. So we now go to Baylor. I think we've talked about them plenty, haven't we?
I mean, we need to give everybody their just due, regardless.
Yeah. Well, we did with 30 minutes with Seth Russell,
yeah,
but I agree.
We also talked a lot about
here's
the good
what
old
I
days.
wrote. Here's what I wrote. We had one person who made predictions that predicted Baylor would win in Lubbock. If they do, fantastic. Craig will give you flowers too. But Tech wins close games. Baylor doesn't. Tech is playing with great confidence and have an identity. Baylor doesn't. They have Taj Brooks, and Baylor can't stop the run. You're on the road at now they won there a couple of years ago. You're on the road in a very difficult environment. If you don't start well like you did against Ames, but still crumbled, I mean, you could get absolutely blown the hell out of that stadium. I don't think Baylor can win it. If they do, great win for Dave Aranda. And a very bad loss for Tech. I have Tech winning by a couple of touchdowns.
Yeah, I think Tech wins. I see all the good things about Baylor and all the things that are better, but they're not confident. And that is, you see them at the end of the games. They're not playing confident. They're playing scared, or they're nervous, or whatever adjective you want to use to describe them. But it's just not there. It's just not there. And I think they're running out of answers.
Well, I'm interested to see Sawyer Robertson go back home and play in front of a Jones AT&T crowd that I'm sure will have a lot of members of his family and friends and all that. So pretty cool to have a homecoming opportunity to go play college ball in your hometown. I just think that's cool, and I would love to see him have a Rocco Becht type of game where Becht goes to Morgantown last week. Not that he's from there, but his parents, both Mountaineers legends, his father getting inducted into freaking Athletics Hall of Fame, for that game was pretty cool. But, so in so many ways, that's part of his roots, and he goes out there and Iowa State gets a big win. Would love to see Sawyer be able to do that out in Lubbock, but I'm not banking on it. I just don't think that this team has an identity, and I know that they haven't shown the ability to close a game. And I think that the lowest percentage odds of outcomes here is Baylor winning in a blowout. Tech winning a blowout, you could totally see that. Close game either way, you could totally see that. Baylor going in there and winning a blowout, impossible to see that scenario, how that would play out. So that means if you're going to win this game, you got to win a close game, which you have not done. And do that on the road in what should be a pretty festive atmosphere. They're fortunate this isn't even worse, like it's at night and you get the whole blackout atmosphere. It's a day game, but yeah, I think they're good enough. Like everybody else in the Big 12, I'll keep saying it ad nauseum. Everybody's good enough to beat everybody on any given week. But I just don't see them marching into Lubbock. Had Tech come off of like a disappointing game last week or something, that would be maybe something that could change it in the other way, the other direction. But Tech also had a bye week. So they sat there for 2 weeks like you did, preparing for you. So, yeah, I think Baylor's going to be 2-5. And then the schedule truly does lighten up. Like this is the end of like the toughest part of their schedule, but I don't know. Will it even matter? I don't know.
All right. Yeah, but they have to go 5-1.
Right.
Like that's a thing. And if you could go 5-1,
and I'm 6-1,
you would be.
You're 5-10.
But they literally have played the top 4 teams in the league at the end of this week, if not the top 5 in a row.
It's like Chad Brendel said yesterday. You thought what looked like an opening. All of a sudden, these are the teams that are better than they're supposed to be. That's what the Big 12 seems to be constantly year in and year out. Craig, every Tuesday and Thursday, we're running a little bit late with Off the Radar.
All right, how much?
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
All right, how much time do I have here, just so I know?
10 minutes.
10 minutes, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe 13.
All right, well, we'll see how it goes then and try to get to as much as we can here in this segment that we do on Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45 or 4:57. It just depends on kind of how things are going. But got a lot of good sports in action tonight. But let's start off with college football. And there are some games tonight, but the games from last week and some of the ratings that dropped for last week's games. The highest rated game last week on TV, and of course, this doesn't include SEC Network, ACC Network, ESPN Plus, Peacock. Like none of those are counted, so you always have to take that into account with the Nielsen ratings. But the top Nielsen rated broadcast, would you say it's Ohio State and Oregon, or would you say it's Texas and Oklahoma?
I'll say Ohio State and Oregon.
It's a night game. But, man, Texas OU's logos are trump Oregon, even though they've been good for the last 15 or 20 years. I'm going to say Texas OU. Well, I would go in the night game, but I'm going to say Texas OU.
It is Ohio State and Oregon.
Damn it.
So Ohio State and Oregon by not only are they the top watch game, they're the top watch game by a couple of million people.
Okay.
Ohio State and Oregon, 9.6 million on NBC, so they nearly reached that 10 million mark. Texas and Oklahoma actually had one of their better ratings in quite a few years, 7.63 million. That was the second most watched game of the weekend. South Carolina, Alabama, 6 million for that one over on ABC. ABC's getting all their money back on this SEC deal. I don't know if you guys have noticed that with these ratings trends, but they are getting big audiences every week. So their money, they spend a lot, but they're getting a lot in return. So South Carolina, Alabama, 3. Penn State, USC, what a game that was. 4.28 million over on CBS. Ole Miss, LSU, 4.24 on ABC. Those were your top 5 games, so all Big Ten and SEC. Not a surprise. They have the biggest schools, and in a couple of these cases, more than a couple of these cases, the biggest matchups, Penn State, USC, OU, Texas, Ohio State, Oregon, etc., Ole Miss, LSU. Like, those are all pretty much the biggest games. The outlier there would be Alabama, but that turned into a hell of a ball game, right? Mm-hmm. So those are your top 5. Just outside that top 5, the highest-ranked Big 12 game came in at number 6, and that was Kansas State and Colorado, 3.26 million on ESPN, a 9:15 kickoff Central Time, so that still pulled in a pretty good number. And then elsewhere, Arizona BYU got 1.3 million. They were a little bit further down, a few spots down the list, but they pulled in $1.3 million. Iowa State, West Virginia, and Utah, Arizona State, both were in that Utah, Arizona State 1.29, Iowa State, West Virginia 1.22. So you had 3 Big 12 games that were within like that top 10 or 12 or so. But yeah, Ohio State and Oregon ruled the roost with 9.6 million overall viewers. And I thought I had something here that was going to show the biggest audiences to date. Any thoughts on that at all before I move on to the next thing?
No, go ahead. No.
All right, so the top 25 most watched games of the first half of this season. After we got that, where is this list? Just show it. All right. So Georgia, Alabama is the biggest audience up to this point. Ohio State, Oregon, now the second most watched game. Texas, Michigan, the third most watched. USC, LSU, and then Notre Dame and Texas A&M, which had 7.92 million. So those are your top 5 games in terms of Nielsen viewers over the course of this first half of the season, and all Big Ten, SEC, with the exception of Notre Dame against SEC, team there in Texas A&M. So they got a stranglehold on the ratings. That's not to be surprised when you've added more big brands and the biggest audiences.
Well, and that's why they're thinking about the alliance. I hate using that word. The scheduling connection between the two, because people see the numbers these games are pulling, and why not add in a couple more each weekend?
Yeah. Also, you spent 20 years marketing it while everybody else,
very true.
Look, the SEC was playing chess. Everybody else was playing checkers.
Yeah.
That's
give ESPN some credit too.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the SEC and ESPN. But had that idea together.
CBS have the SEC for a while?
CBS
too?
CBS, yeah. But
that was the one.
I would have dinged for that on YouTube, not because we stole the song, just because it wasn't that good.
It's not a copyright?
No.
Okay.
CBS deserves a lot of the credit, because they had it up until this year. I mean, ESPN, though, is going full court press, and they're getting big ratings in return on ABC. So you look at the top ratings overall through the first half of the year, and outside of the SEC and the Big Ten, you've got the Notre Dame participation against A&M at number 5. You've got Clemson against Georgia. So there's a tie-in again there at number 7. Miami playing Florida. That was number 9. So you have to go to get non-SEC or non-Big Ten. You'd have to go all the way to the 17th most watched game so far in the first half of the year, which was Florida State and Georgia Tech, which got just under 5 million viewers. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is why the conferences and the networks and all of that is going the way that it's going, because those are clear and away the biggest audiences week in and week out. And then there's a couple teams that are, participating as well, but against SEC and Big Ten teams. So I don't know how that ends or changes, but there you go with that.
It's not going to change much unless it's Ohio State, Michigan, but that game's not going to mean as much, even though it's a great rivalry.
The same thing I've said for anything, for any Big 12 fan, any ACC. Just go win games. That's all you can do. That's all you can do is win games.
Although you have that Florida State game that usually draws pretty good numbers.
Well, this year.
No.
Yep. So, all right, tonight got a couple games. Georgia State at Marshall, 6 p.m. on ESPN 2. And there's a big slate of just in general. You got college football, you got MLB, and you got the NFL tonight. And I'm sure there's some other things that are not even on my radar right now. But you got Georgia State at Marshall, 6 p.m. on ESPN 2. Boston College at Virginia Tech, 6:30 on ESPN. Also tonight, got an NFL game going on as well as you get your Amazon Prime weekly contest. Broncos at Saints, 7:15 kickoff tonight. Any interest
that's
in
Sean Payton against the Saints?
Sean Payton versus old team.
I think Drew Brees is supposed to have being honored in this game, and there was some sort of a flare-up among the Saints organization about did they want Sean Payton to be a part of this because he left them. But this makes sense. Peyton will be there. Drew Brees will be there. They play each other, and this is the day to do it.
Yeah, a little interested in the game. I wish the both teams were a little bit better. The Saints are very banged up.
They lost another wide receiver.
Yeah. Rashid Shaheed, who's fantastic.
Who destroyed the Cowboys, right?
Yeah, Rashid Shaheed's fantastic. He had meniscus surgery. He's probably going on IR. Chris Olave's not playing. Derek Carr's not playing. If you're a Spencer Rattler fan, tune in tonight, though.
Yeah, Spencer Rattler will be out there doing his thing. So you got NFL on Prime, Broncos at Saints. You got a couple of college football games on the ESPN networks. You also have the AL and NLCSs continuing on. ALCS Game 3 on TBS. You've got the Yankees up 2-0 on the Cleveland Guardians. So that game going on later on tonight as the Yankees actually, it's not later on tonight. The other game's later on tonight. Yankees-Guardians in action right now. Excuse me.
They just threw first
pitch. It's
it.
in the third inning, and the Guardians are up 2-1 right now. Cleveland at home trying to get their first win of the series. So you can check that right now over on TBS, Max, all of that. But, yeah, Guardians up 2-1. And then tonight, what I was actually trying to refer to, you do have the night game, NLCS, Dodgers at the Mets. The Dodgers lead that series 2-1, and that will see a first pitch of 7:08 over on FS1. So MLB's got to be sitting there just licking their lips, man. Dodgers-Yankees is right there. Like, they just need 4 more wins to get Dodgers-Yankees. But
that's the old-time favorite. And then
Yankees-Mets wouldn't be bad either, but I don't think won any part of the Cleveland Guardians in any scenario.
Both coasts was the only 2 time slots that matter in New York and LA, for the rest. They would love that.
They just don't want Cleveland to win. Anything else, you get New York, or you get New York, LA.
Yeah, I'm watching this series. The Guardians. I hate their name. I hate it.
I don't like Guardians either.
I hate it. I hate
What's
the
Guardians.
Washington
NFL team's name?
Good Commander. I hate it too. And I understand changing from the Indians. I'm not saying that. They just could have done better than Guardians. But I watch it. I've watched both games. And Cleveland's they're right there for a second. And then the Yankees just go Yankee the crap out of it.
They get
and
Soto and Judge.
I want. Here's what I want. I know it's not going to happen. I want Juan Soto, somebody to go and pay for Juan Soto and take a guy away from the Yankees. It doesn't happen to them.
Take away how?
He's a free agent.
Give a guy some money to wipe him out, or
he's a free
just
agent.
Pluck him as a free agent.
After this year, I want somebody to take Juan Soto away.
You don't take a good free agent away from the Cowboys.
I know.
And you don't take a good free agent away from the Yankees.
Yeah. Well,
it's not going to happen.
They are zeroing in on a New York, LA, or New York World Series unless the Guardians have something to say about that. And they got to start doing that today. So they got a slight lead right now. We'll see if they hang on to that for another 6 innings or so. But there's a few things off the radar.
Thank you, Craig, very much. Go Guardians, right? Max Muncy, former Baylor great, is having a heck of a series in a year for the Dodgers. When we come back, Roger Wallace, color analyst for UT football, He's next, and this is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marcos.com with numerous offers and discounts with code names or numbers, letters and numbers, that you can use when you call up to go pick one up on the way home or to go pick up just because you want to or have them deliver it too. Go to Marcos.com and find various specials on pretty much every type of pizza you can imagine, topping, thin crust, whatever, they have it. And then, of course, the wings and sandwiches and much more. Bob Mock, 5 locations in Waco. It is the fastest growing pizza brand in America. And Bob Mock, the owner. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
When it comes to me and my money, I know the way it should be. I need a partner I can count on. That's Genco and me. Genco is my credit union. They're always there for me. They're people I trust. They treat me like family. My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Bambi SQ, what is the number one reason or 2 or 3 reasons, Bambi, that people should contact House of Travel?
As a travel agency local here in Waco, we can take care of all your bookings, your payments, answer your questions, help you when there are issues or problems, things that may come up that you don't know what to do or how to fix them. People don't realize we don't charge a fee for what we do. It doesn't cost you extra to use a travel agent. We're just here. We get paid by the tour companies and the cruise lines to represent them. But you have an expert on your side that's here and local, and you have a name and a face to put together to help you with anything that you may need. Give us a call. We can price things for you. We can help you answer questions. We can make it simple, easy, and one stop.
Your knowledge of all the years you've done this and then spit it back to them or give them options?
Helps us to kind of know a date range, a budget, what your goals are and what you want to see and do on your vacation. And then that helps us to know what to look for, and we can narrow down and help you make the best choices for your vacation so you get the best value. You get exactly what you were hoping for, and making sure that it's taken care of with a carefree, easy, simple for you type vacation. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Every day I learn something new. I experience new situations and things that I can help take care of for people, whether it's just making sure you get the best deals and find the best vacations, or whether it's to solve that problem like you've got a flight that's being canceled and you don't know what to do. There's weather coming up. Should I cancel my trip next week because of the hurricane? Those are things that we take care of and you don't have to worry about. You've got somebody that you can rely on that you know is an expert, knows what we're doing, have been doing this for a long time, so that you're not questioning, okay, does the person on the other end of the phone really understand what I'm asking or know how to find those deals? You've got an expert, and we are here to take care of that.
For more information, go to houseoftravelwaco.com.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Here we go, this 5 o'clock hour. Mickey Spagnola around the corner, but Roger Wallace, color analyst for UT football, joins us on 365 Sports on his way to a high school football broadcast tonight. Raj, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Man, you had Michigan. Now you get Georgia, Oklahoma, even though that was a blowout. This is one hell of a start. What a really nice schedule the first half of the season.
Yeah, it's gone pretty well when you think about, Texas obviously off to a great start, but it'll be a whole different animal against Carson Beck and this Georgia offense. They kind of, I don't want to say they got lucky, but you think about the quarterback situation in all those games has been kind of unsettled going back to Michigan. Now they get one of the best in the country, and we'll see a little more accurately maybe where this team stands on Saturday night.
Is this the not that they haven't had nerves for the rest, but is this the true nervous SEC game tension because this is the first real true test of this team's talent versus another team that should be on the level with them?
Yeah, well, they're always nervous going into OU, as everybody knows, with that series. So they don't care what shape OU's in. That's a nervous game. But this is just the one where, when the schedule came out, you knew somebody big was coming here. And it happens to be, the premier program in the nation maybe in the last 10 years or neck and neck with Alabama. So combine that with the fact that Texas is undefeated, number one, no doubt that this is the one, even when the schedule came down more so than any other game, people kind of circled. I mean, they knew they were going to play A&M. They knew they were going to play Arkansas. They didn't know they were going to host Georgia.
What were your thoughts on what you saw from Quinn Ewers?
Rusty. I mean, he missed high, starting with the third throw of the game that he got picked off on. Similar to some other throws when things aren't going well, that seems to be where he struggles a little bit. And then I do think OU's defense is pretty good, and they put a lot of pressure on him. And then Texas in the second quarter, they were able to run the ball, and that really changed everything. And, this running back group probably doesn't get enough credit. Now it's Trey Wisner. And I know, David, you loved him. We talked preseason about how much you liked him, and nobody knew that he would become so prominent in their rushing attack as he is now. And then, Ewers made enough plays, but he's going to have to make more, and I think he will on Saturday night against the Georgia defense that, gave up over 300 yards to a freshman quarterback in Michael Van Buren last week for Mississippi State.
Do you know, or will they know only after this week what their weaknesses, if anything, they have?
That's a good question, and I'll go yes. They can't be. I'm only saying this because of the scar tissue for the last decade plus. They can't be this good on defense for 12 games where they're not giving up touchdowns in games. They're giving up late scores in games to make it where they gave up 7. So they're going to get tested on defense more here in the next few weeks. There's no doubt about that. So there's one where we're wondering. And then 2, can they, still consistently run the ball, against a Georgia front? I don't know, Vanderbilt, they're kind of the flavor of the year right now for what they've done magically, but I still think Texas can line up and have some success against them. So I'll go yes, just because we haven't seen it yet as far as, they really haven't taken a meaningful fourth quarter snap in 6 games. That's absurd.
Roger, with the quarterback situation they have there, they're good either way. It doesn't matter. But Quinn looked, a little rusty last week. Do you think that was lingering injury, rust? What would you call it?
Maybe a little of that. And then, maybe the fact that what he did against OU 2 years ago when he came off the injury from Alabama, and it all was so easy. So the natural reaction is, he's done this before. He's done this before going into OU. But that OU team, obviously, 2 years ago was a mess. This one wasn't, especially defensively. They played well on defense against Tennessee. Their defense had to win the game against Auburn, and it did. So I think it was a combination of maybe the best front, and for some reason Michigan just didn't play very well against them early on. So I think it's a combination. But, man, you guys want to shut down Sark, ask him about making a quarterback change. That's what happened today in his news conference. He did not want to talk about that, and, rightly so. That, he's not going to talk about what goes into making a in-game change other than an injury. So, but that was a frosty moment today.
But good grief, Roger. Talk about an embarrassment of riches. Most people are talking about which quarterback to play because both of them stink or they're hurt or something. And Texas is like, which better than most of the country's quarterback do we play? We got two options, and then listening to you talk about the rest of the team, like, I mean, it's almost like you got to be bracing for something's got to go wrong at some point. Knock on wood. I'm not wishing for that, but my gosh, like, how could you have drawn up a better first half of this season? And if they beat Georgia, I mean, forget about it.
You couldn't, and that's what. And again, I go back to I'm speaking for the fans now, but the scar tissue since 2009 is kind of what's going to happen next, what shoe is going to fall. Now, last year, they kind of pulled the MAC thing, and that's you lose to OU, and then you run the table, and they end up in the playoffs. So, what they're doing, guys, to me, and I know you probably talk about every week with the playoff, is every time you win a game, you kind of put that insurance card in your back pocket for another week because one lost Texas is going to get in the playoffs. So as long as you can keep racking up wins, and then you realize that things could, you're going to stumble down the stretch possibly. So that's why this game's so big for so many reasons. Is it's just another time to put that card in your pocket and play another week with that perfect record.
Roger, as you've watched this game approach, Texas, obviously, they haven't been completely perfect, but they're about as close to it as we've seen. And you mentioned being tested this week. Georgia, though, they don't seem right. It's not like that great second half against Alabama, but the first half they're down 28-0. They've kind of hit and missed like a bad engine in a car. Do they seem right to you?
Yeah, and I think that's when you have so much success like Alabama's had, like Georgia, that time against Clemson, you just kind of assume, right? You assume the jersey and the logo, and it's going to be just as good as the last one. And I think you can go both ways. Georgia's probably not as good as they've been the last few years. They could probably get there. They've got the talent, and Texas isn't as bad as they've been. So the logo at Texas not scaring anybody lately. But yeah, they give up 31. I know a lot of it was late to Mississippi State, but still, that's Kirby Smart. Nobody takes more pride in defense than that guy. And to see Mississippi State put up 31 points, they dropped out of the number one spot in the AP poll after the win against Kentucky, where they only put up 13. So to your point, yeah, you get down by 28, you make a great comeback against Alabama, then lose. That's got to take its toll, too. So certainly this doesn't appear to be the dominant type Georgia team we've seen in the past. And, I mean, how do you keep it up, guys? I mean, Kirby Smart, 99 wins, and he's only halfway through his ninth season, rather, is just unbelievable.
Roger, going back to the Oklahoma game for a second, I was just curious. I mean, I know you've been to a lot of those rivalry games between the two, and there's ebbs and flows over the course of time, but just what did you take away from the Oklahoma side of things? Because, when you're having conversations about what was worse, that shutout blowout from, a couple years back or this game here, and the answer was this game here feels worse than the blowout from a couple years ago. I mean, that's a pretty low point. So just what was that atmosphere like, and when's the last time you've seen OU kind of down this bad, I suppose?
Yeah, it all started with David. My first Texas OU game was 1987. At the Cotton Bowl. But here's the thing. I noticed it early because you can kind of get a gauge on the fans and how they feel about their team. OU wasn't there early. They were not packing that south end zone like they normally do early. Usually Texas fans have that, that reputation of kind of laissez-faire, late arriving and all that. And this was totally opposite. So that's your first clue. And your second clue is just kind of during the game, it was almost more hope than expectation. And I've been there so many times where OU either expected or knew that they were the better team. So that's the feeling I got. 2 years ago, remember, Dylan Gabriel was hurt.
Yeah.
Or that's a much different ball game. This year, they had Jackson Arnold, and they thought he was going to be good enough where they didn't care that Gabriel moved on to Oregon. And then they make the switch to Hawkins. So now, definitely, I think the OU side is going, man, where are we right now as a program? Now, in this day and age, if they want to go get a quarterback next year, they could be right in the thick of it, depending on who they find in the portal, if they want to go that route. Whereas you guys talked about it, Sark seems to have built something that's pretty good, pretty solid right now for the next few years.
87 Texas OU, 44-9. Roger, Oklahoma won that game.
Yeah, what was it 88 or 89, the Johnny Walker catch?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. We were right there on the sideline, and we're able to enjoy the atmosphere. Yeah.
And I know you'll know it, but you remember what happened the day after our first Texas OU game? Scab game.
Scab game. Washington beat Dallas with their backups, right?
Yeah. Scab game at Texas Stadium.
Absolutely. My memory used to be pretty good, but no, I remember the fact that they had backups who beat Randy White, Danny White, Tony Dorsett, and others. That was unbelievable. Good gosh, the Scab game.
See, our old station just celebrated 70 years, David. You and I were not honored in their look back. I knew you should have been. I knew I wouldn't be. They missed it on you, though.
No. I ended up making a switch to a station across the loop, and then from that point on, I was persona non gratis. Yeah, 70 years. Man, we had some great times. Hey, Raj, I know you got a high school game. Thanks for your time. Enjoy all of what you have because you went through about a decade of with what Texas was doing. So enjoy it. Thanks for your time. Good luck with the broadcast Saturday.
Always good to talk to you guys. Take care.
Roger Wallace. Yeah, we covered that Scab game. Redskins won the Super Bowl. They loved those years that were interrupted. 82, 87, 91 was fine.
So really, the only way they could have won one until 1991 was if there was a disruption.
Do you know what the theory was with Joe Gibbs as the coach? Is that team had a bunch of almost the union type togetherness. We just lost. We just lost everything.
Yeah.
We there? Something get knocked off?
Yeah, our headsets are. Can you hear us, Garrett?
I can hear y'all.
Okay, all right. We just lost all of our.
All right,
at least we can't hear. All right, which might be good. When we come back, we will hear from Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, which is great if you tailgate. It's absolutely fantastic if you tailgate because they have the charcoal and the pellet fuel. But on top of that, cold beer and wine. On top of that, the full-service butcher shop with beef, pork, poultry, and seafood. You want chicken wings or chicken to put on the grill? They have it. You want tri-tip? You want brisket? You want sausage to grill? They have it. So Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store, also a full-service bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches every single day. And there are cakes and cookies and much more, too. Marinades and seasonings for your tailgate or for what you just do by cooking whatever it is during the week. Bauer family does a great job. 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, Waco Custom Marketplace.
Hi, I'm Dana Hassel, President and CEO of American Bank. Waco is a great place for business, and for more than 70 years, American Bank has been the bank for business. We continue to invest in our growing community with state-of-the-art branches conveniently located to serve you within minutes. Our experienced bankers, lenders, and decision makers work directly with business owners like you every day, providing tailored solutions, timely answers, and local insights face-to-face. Schedule a meeting with one of our bankers today and find out what makes American Bank the bank for your business. Member FDIC.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
He is to humanity what bacon is to breakfast. He is allowed to use his cell phone on an airplane. He is Cesar Leal of Leal's Mexican Restaurant.
I don't always eat Mexican food, but when I do, I prefer Leal.
Leal's Mexican Restaurant, 9000 Panther Drive in Woodway, 254-772-8140.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing his time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Cowboys with an off week, and they might as well have not shown up on Sunday because the Lions beat the living hell out of them. And Cowboys with some interesting moments this week on the radio, including Jerry and the flagship and even Troy Aikman on radio in Dallas on what he sees on film. Mickey, thanks for your time. So much for the off week and nothing going on.
Very clever, David. I like that.
I think I handled that pretty well. Let's start with today. We saw a link. Paul shared it. Troy Aikman was on the ticket in Dallas on what he thought about the routes by the wide receivers and said he didn't like what he saw. I know when Troy speaks, people listen.
Yeah, absolutely. And, he has the cred to be able to, identify that and say it. And I thought it was a very interesting take. Now, I think it was yesterday we were talking about how we see great separation on some of these routes. And it was like, is it the routes, how they're designed? It seems always Dak is thrown into some tight situations, which result in tip passes or balls being intercepted. So, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. And to me, the first thing that needs to be fixed is the offensive line needs to play better. They need to be in coordination with all five guys and get all five guys in the spots you wanted them in instead of trying to have to compensate for one guy missing because of an injury and changing two spots. And for a while, it seemed like it worked out. And then against Detroit, not so much. So you come up with an idea, and I'll probably tell you, yeah, you're probably right.
Mickey, what do you make of Jerry Jones' obvious frustrations? Like, everybody can say what they want about what happened on the radio yesterday, and he's in all of that. But he's usually not like that. Like that is
by the funny, I thought it was. By the way, I thought it was pretty funny.
Oh, when he was like getting after them?
Yeah, why not? He got after the rest of us over these 35 years at some point, right? About time somebody else felt his wrath. Okay. I mean, it's part of the job, right? And think about it. If you guys were in bed with a coach and you were doing his show and you asked some of the questions he was being asked, do you think the coach would have the right to get on to you?
Yeah.
If it was his show.
Yeah. Now, Mickey, I know what you're saying there, but yes, there's a partnership between the radio station and the Cowboys. And yes, They pay him for this show. Now, he has to agree with it, and no one's more accessible in life than Jerry Jones is when it comes to these segments. But weren't RJ, Sean, Bobby, whatever show, asking questions that the fans themselves wanted to ask too?
Well, would you show up and ask those questions in person, or would you hide behind a microphone?
I don't think I don't think I've ever.
No,
been
I don't
afraid.
mean you.
Yeah.
I don't mean you. I
Right.
just mean in general. Right. Hey, you can come to the games and act like you're part of the media and ask anything you want, right? They don't. The reason they have the privilege to interview him is because it's over a contract, right?
Yep.
And I think that's what upset him, and that's why he reacted the way he did, I think. Look, there's not another owner in this town that does a bi-weekly radio segment, right?
I don't know of
And-
anybody
and-
in pro sports that does one weekly radio segment.
Well, I guess we could say he does it because he's a GM, but there's not another GM in this town with the other pro sports that goes on the air with their station and gets grilled. And he wasn't getting grilled. I shouldn't say that. They just asked, here's my deal on it. I think at some point you got to read the room, right? And you could tell if you heard the whole interview early on, he probably was a little edgy. And then you asked, and he reacted, and then you doubled down like it was funny, and I think it kind of pissed him off.
But though I was going to ask about that frustration, though, because usually he can internalize that well. Is it the?
But it got personal. That's what happened.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just talking about what led to it outside of their questions. Like usually, they've people can needle at him and all that, and he's pretty good at internalizing it and I'm sure directing it somewhere else. But is it the combination of the 3 home losses that they've had that have all just been so bad, and then they go on the road and they're a different team?
Well, who'd they play on the road and who'd they play at home?
I mean, that's true. But and
that goes back to last year.
Mm-hmm.
Who'd they lose to on the road, and then compare that to who they beat at home?
Yeah.
So sometimes I don't think it's home or away. I think it's who you're playing.
But it's also
and
the way they're losing. Like they're getting destroyed.
I got it.
Yeah.
The two of the losses were pretty embarrassing. I get it, and that's what makes 3-3 not look like 3-3, right? One game out of first place.
Yeah. Because if they protected their home turf, which they started to do after a few years of not being able to do that. I mean, they've been so good at home. And I know they've had players out, and now others and the Lions are going to start playing without 2 or 3 of their defensive linemen. It's part of the attrition. You went back to the offensive line. How can they fix it? Is a bye week enough time to fix it, or is that who they are?
Well, since you can't practice during the bye week because of the CBA, it's not like you got extra time. Now, the coaches have extra time to self-scout, right? And, I don't know that you're going to reinvent the wheel in 5 days because the only extra practice you get after the bye is on Monday, which normally is you're coming back from a game, you get a run in, a lift in, you have meetings, but you don't really practice. So if they want, which I'm assuming they will, they'll have an extra practice on Monday. Look, number one, you got to get healthy. Now, I'm not saying Tyler Guyton was setting the world on fire at left tackle, but to fix that, they decided you're moving your Pro Bowl guard to left tackle, and you're bringing in a guy that had never started in his first year in the league to play left guard. And if you go back and look at some of the stuff that went on, there was a bunch of missed blocks by those guys. So if you can get your 5 out there and get them healthy, and maybe they can improve as the season goes along. I mean, think about it. You're starting rookies at the two most important spots on the offensive line, center and left tackle. There was going to be growing pains, and there has been, because I always thought that with the injuries they incurred on defense, to compensate for that, you're just going to have to play well offensively and score points. And evidently it doesn't work out that way so much.
You know what? When you take an all-pro or Pro Bowl, whatever, one position and move them to another, you're then damaging or weakening two positions.
Exactly. And think about it. The guy that they counted on to be the backup offensive tackle, and look, this guy's no great shakes, but Chuma Edoga, he's still on injured reserve.
Yep.
So if they didn't make that move to left tackle, the next guy up is Awesome Richards, a draft choice, by the way. I don't remember, 6th round maybe, something like that. And the only time he played last year was mop-up time, so obviously they didn't trust him, so they decided to do it this way. They got away with it the Pittsburgh game, but again, once you put those guys on tape, now the next team's going, okay, well, this is why this guy wasn't there, or this is why this guy wasn't playing much, and they know to attack at those spots. Plus, for almost 3 quarters, you're dealing with Aiden Hutchinson, which is no easy task for anybody in the league, no matter who you are.
Mickey, Jimmy Johnson was great at being able to send signals to his team through the radio, whether Galloway or Hanson or even things that you wrote or others wrote. And there's been other coaches who have been great at that. Nick Saban admitted that he did things like that on his coach's show and also to the media. Parcells, etc. I don't want to give Jerry this much credit, but do you feel like in the end so much was said about the confrontation with RJ and Sean and Bobby Belt that people in a way forgot about the Lions game for a couple of days?
Well, they surely did, because all the attention ended up being on Jerry, right? Nationally, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I'm not sure he was that cunning. Now, don't sell him short, because remember, he's the smartest guy in the room, right?
Yes, he'll tell you that. And he is a lot of times. Yeah.
And he is, by the way. I never looked at it that way, but I thought about it, because we talked about it, how for some reason, how Jimmy would send messages to his team through the media, like that time he walked out of the Tuesday press conference. He had it. It was already pre-planned that that's what he was going to do. He just needed someone to ask the right question so he can get pissed off and walk out, and somebody accommodated him, not knowing that's what they were doing, right?
I shared this. We had RJ on the show yesterday. I shared this. RJ told me that Randy, I asked him, I said, hey, did Galloway call you? Because that's like Galloway loved that. I mean, Galloway wanted to be unretired on Tuesday, but Galloway said to RJ it was the golden moment in local Dallas radio, and RJ goes, Randy, you had the 3-inch headlines before they played San Francisco. He goes, nope, this one trumps that moment.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'll be interested to see when they get back together next Tuesday how it goes.
Yep.
Because Jerry will be like it never happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think?
I mean, he learned that. He learned that from Tex Schramm, right? Tex could go to the mat with you on one day, and the next morning it'll be, hey, how's it going? What are you doing? And it was almost like it was a dig on you, like, no big deal. We argued, and then we go back and do our job. So I don't think it'll be lasting.
Mickey, do you see, and this is great for a bye week because otherwise, what will we talk about? But do you see any functional changes or things that they might maybe focus on to come out of the bye week? Their schedule after the bye week also, it doesn't get any easier. I mean, that's what happens when you win 12 games, though. I mean, you get the tougher schedule.
Think about this. Their next 5 games, all the teams are either in first place or tied for first place in their division. So, yeah, it's not going to get any easier, but you knew that, right? Mm-hmm. That was part of the deal when you go 12-5 and you don't benefit from it in the playoffs, and now you pay the price twice, right? You didn't advance in the playoffs, and now you got to play a first place schedule, and the schedule gets harder.
Well,
so,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, what you can't. I mean, you are who you are right now, right? It's not like you're going to go out, as Jerry said, and find 20 new players. You got what you got. Now, can you get healthy? Do I have to go out there with seven guys that would have been or could have been starting on defense? Can I get some of those guys back because you don't have to play a game for 2 weeks? That certainly would help. And if the defense is not so porous, maybe the offense, you don't have to depend on them to do everything, which they have been, and they didn't do what they needed to do in the game on Sunday. Think about it. They drove right down the field on the 2 first possessions, right? They get in the red zone where they've had problems all season long, and they kick a field goal, and they have an interception, right? And I know if and buts, but if say you score 10 points, maybe 14, you're still in the game, and you're still saying, okay, I'm not desperate, and maybe Detroit plays it differently instead of throwing 10 times with the tackle eligible and, all the fancy plays they pulled out. But if you got a lead, it's a lot easier to do that when there's not a lot of pressure on you. And then they dance on your grave, and they better be careful because, sometimes karma comes back at you.
Well, maybe they meet in the playoffs and Dallas scores 14 points. I don't know. Mickey,
14 points. Yeah, that'll sound. Hey, do you remember that with Detroit in 1991?
Absolutely.
They wiped the Cowboys out during the regular season with Eric Kramer at quarterback.
Yep.
And then they go there in the playoffs, and I'm thinking, okay, it's Eric Kramer. There's no way that's happening again.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened again, right?
Yep. Barry Sanders and Eric Kramer, they end up losing to Washington in the NFC Championship game. Now, remember I said this, and I'm not predicting this because I'm terrible about it.
I'm going to write it down.
When they went to Pittsburgh, it was a mood of which Dallas was a mess, and they were going to drop to what would have been 2-3 or whatever, the 2-4 on a road game, right?
Right.
So they're going to
no. They were 1-2.
Okay, they would have dropped another game. They would have been 2 games under 500. Now they're going to San Francisco, who has been their absolute 800-pound gorilla, where they like to grab them by the neck, make them like it, sniff it, and all that. And my God, Paul, you know what's going to happen? They're going to go. No one's going to. They're a mess.
I would bet you dollars to donuts.
How much?
That
Texas Roadhouse steak dinner.
That Christian that Christian McCaffrey is miraculously healed.
Yeah.
For that game.
And so will be about 7 Cowboys defensive players too. Mickey, has Jerry ever yelled at you?
Oh yeah. Right off the bat. I wrote about it today or yesterday in my notes column. So it's 1989. I am the beat writer for the Dallas Times-Herald. They trade Herschel Walker on October 12th. It was a Thursday. They traded Herschel Walker for 4, like a bag of peanuts, right? 4 players that Minnesota didn't want, and they didn't initially reveal that those players were tied to draft choices, that if you didn't keep the players, you got the draft choices. And all along, that's what the Cowboys wanted, the draft choices, right? So by Friday, Channel 21 is going to do a roundtable discussion with the beat writers and columnists live on TV Friday night. So we get on there, and no one knew about the draft choices, and everybody just panned the trade. These new guys came into the NFL and don't know what they're doing. They traded the best player on the team, and here's what they got. Are you serious? Well, by the next day, this rumor started by somebody on radio that tied to the trade also was that Steve Walsh had to go to the Vikings at the end of the season. Well, I found out that it wasn't true. It was bogus. I don't know who started it or why it got started, but it was wrong. Well, I get a call on Saturday from our editors, and they want a story on it. I said, it's not a story. There's no sense us creating a story that's not a story. And they go, we don't care. We want Jerry to comment on it. So I get a hold of Maryland and get him to call me back. And I told him what happened and what we're doing. And he had seen the TV show Friday night. And he let me have it like under no uncertain terms. I mean, I heard stuff that I don't think I'd heard before, right? And he got done, and I finally said, well, okay, would you like to comment? He said, write any damn thing you want.
Wow.
And so that was maybe the only time I think we really butted heads, right? And, now here we are now. And as it turned out, he was right. We were wrong, but we didn't know the truth at that time.
Yeah.
So, I've heard him go off on me. Absolutely. And I think most everybody has at one point.
Yeah, all those players. Jesse Solomon turned out to be pretty decent. I know we got to go. Isaac Holt was pretty good as far as the collateral of that trade. And, of course, we know they got Emmett and Russell Maryland and a bunch more. Mickey, thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time. Even an off week for the Cowboys brings interest and drama. Thanks for your time. DallasCowboys.com.
All you got to do is wait a few hours, and the Cowboys will provide something for you.
They really will. I still don't
would like them to provide a Super Bowl. That'd be great.
I don't like what Jerry called.
How many hours until that happens?
You can be mad, you can be upset, but I don't like the fact he said yahoos and then doubled down on it. Yeah. I pay those guys. No, you don't. Yeah. All right. When we come back, in fact, it is time for Paul and his top 5.
For Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5. Hey, it's the weekend, everybody. Celebrate. And you know how you should celebrate? You should go to bitonbeef.com. Make sure you find out when the next auction is. Put in our promo code 365sports. Bid on some great Texas-raised Wagyu beef. And wait for it to come in the mail. And then that day will be far enjoyable. And then the next week, you can put it on your grill and have unbelievable stuff from TexasBeefHouse.com and BidOnBeef.com. My top 5 names you need to know. Lesser known names, some G5, some just that we're not talking about as much, but that need to be in the discussion, that I want you to know down the stretch of this season, because sometimes not everybody plays at Georgia or Alabama. Number 5, Harold Fannin, tight end Bowling Green. This one, I have to admit, was not paying much attention to. I saw him make some plays against Penn State and A&M and thought, oh, that guy's pretty good. But their PR department sent me an email this week, as they did all of the members of the College Football Writers Association, and he is the 5th leading receiver in the country at tight end. He's number 5. He's a tight end. He's fantastic, super athletic. Bowling Green is just super jacked that they have him. Look at this right here. Look, that is a good 1.5 feet over this defender who's on the ground right here. He is a fantastic player. Keep your eye on Harold Fannin. He is going places, and Bowling Green, Again, 5th ranked receiver. Total yards, receptions, all that stuff in the country. And he's a tight end. That does not happen all that often. Number 4, Jalen Royals, wide receiver at Utah State. Look, lost in the shuffle of Utah State's really bad season is a player here who's really, really good. Jalen Royals, I believe, is 3rd in the country in receptions behind guys like Trey Harris. So he's doing his part for the Utah State Aggies. And he is someone who is going to get some looks in the NFL. And he's a name you need to know, even though Utah State's struggling. This dude can straight up ball. Absolutely, he can play. Number 3, Kyle Monanganai at Rutgers. You see these guns right here? Those are guns. You have to have a permit for things like this in most states. Well, half of them. Well, not as many as you should probably have a permit. But anyway, he has got some just absolute ripped pythons there, and he runs through people. He's got that, he's not as like husky as Ron Dane, but that Ron Dane just run through you and then can hit the gear. You're kind of even surprised he's as fast as he is because he's so big, but he is a really good player. He is so Greg Schiano in every single way and the kind of player that he loves to have. He has lowered the boom on a ton of guys in the Big Ten, and also someone I think that translates very well to the NFL because of his stature, his strength, his speed, and his ability on the goal line. If they're the 5-yard and in, Monanganai is getting the ball, and there's not much anybody else can do about it. Number 2, Trey White, defensive end at San Diego State. You may say, Paul, why would you bring up a defensive end at San Diego State? This is your national leader in sacks right now. 11 sacks so far on the season. He's impossible to block. He's getting a ton of, he's getting a ton of double teams and still coming through them. And yes, I know he's about to be a Pac-12 player if he's there long enough at San Diego State. But 11 sacks, somebody you need to keep an eye on. He's a name you'll hear more of. And number 1, Noel Williams, DB at Cal. Why is he on this list? Well, this is your national leader in interceptions right here. If you need evidence of this, just go back and watch this game against Auburn, where all the quarterbacks that got to play in this game that were subsequently thrown under the bus by Hugh Freeze still have nightmares about Noel Williams. 6 interceptions already on the year, 1 return for a touchdown. A fantastic player, great hands, great speed. Pay attention to him from the Calgorithm. Get Noel Williams out there more, buddy. Get him out there because people need to know how good this guy is. That is the top 5. That is going to do it.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. Garrett cut you off because sometimes you just have to do that. But nice top 5. All right, tomorrow, Craig and I do not have a high school game tomorrow night, so we're going to have to do the exhaustive 5 consecutive days. We'll be here.
The Fridays are off in the fall. What?
You guys have the option still. I'll give it to you. You can back out at any moment.
Don't give me the option.
Don't give me the option either.
I'll give you the option.
I won't sleep tonight thinking about it. All right, Garrett, thank you very much. Emery Winter, Levi Caraway, who's just sent a text about the interview, the segment we had with Seth Russell, which was great. True serum in many, many ways. Thanks to our sponsors. My computer power went out, so I apologize to all of you heathens inside the chat room. I did not get involved with you the last 45 minutes of the show, but thank you for your support until maybe now. I'm David Smoak. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, have a great night. This is 365 Sports.